Chapter 681-Goals. There are not many people who can meet these conditions. Even, in his head, he couldn't think of any candidate who could meet his conditions. It's impossible to have no one. There must be someone, but I didn't expect it. Sater's eyes narrowed slightly, sparkling brightly, and he whispered to himself. Ta-ta-ta. Suddenly, a loud sound of footsteps came from a distant location. Sadlu's pupils shrank, and he plunged his head into the trash can beside him quickly, throwing all the rubbish on him, only revealing a pair of eyes, looking at the scene outside the street. A group of guards walked from the side and kept shouting. Quick, the man over there, go to the street to check. I believe that this guy from Sade Road will never escape. Also, the garbage dump must not be spared. Do you hear it clearly? Yes, Captain. A group of guards quickly plunged headlong into the street. Sater Road, who was hiding in the trash can, raised his whole heart, feeling nervous and uneasy. He watched a group of guards, who were constantly approaching his direction, and was already thinking about whether to kill them all. Watching. The guards are getting closer. 4 guards, forming a squad. It's not thankful to work hard, it's all to blame for this 090 damn sad road, and let us come here to clean up the garbage. It was contaminated with a stench, and I had to wash it several times when I got home before I dared to go to bed on the Kong. No, but who made us humble? It's just a group of small guards, and we still obey orders obediently. Otherwise, military law enforcement is no joke. Quote. Several guards groaned. Let them scour the trash. This is simply, it is better to let them go to clean up the garbage, and what are the guards? Holding this mood, their faces became more and more complaining. Do it quickly, the captain will come to supervise soon. A guard waved his hand, looking particularly helpless, said. He gradually put away the blade in his hand, took out a long wooden stick next to it, and turned it over in the garbage heap, turning all the stinking garbage upside down. A pungent odor filled the air. The guards couldn't take it anymore, and immediately threw away the sticks and talked with each other. No, I can't stand it anymore, this smell is too stinky. I think no one can stand the smell. Sade Road, this guy shouldn't be in there. We should withdraw first. Not necessarily. Hey, why did you run away? Wait a minute. If you want to search, you can do it yourself, I won't be here with you anymore. This smell, my God, is the first time I smell it in my life. No way, I'm going to vomit. Quote. Several guards fled, feeling the pungent smell in the air, causing them to flee to a location not far away without any pause. A long time. From the trash can, an empty space was opened. Sade Road walked out of the garbage heap with a gloomy face, the stench that even the guards could not bear, and he stayed abruptly for so long. Visible. What tenacious willpower he must have in order to survive. I have given up everything for revenge. Sade Road looked back at the garbage dump, expressionless, said. His sense of taste was almost infected. Spending too much time in these rubbish heaps changes the sense of taste. Chapter 681-Goal. Spending too much time in these rubbish heaps changes the sense of taste. Front. The sound of footsteps hurriedly left. Without any expression, Sade Road turned around and gradually penetrated into the street ahead. Who can choose? This question has become the biggest problem in his mind. If there is no candidate, he wants revenge, easier said than done. What's more, there is a terrifying Liang in the palace. Liang. Thadlu's footsteps stopped, and a deep resentment flashed in his eyes. Unable to compete, but it does not mean that he does not resent Liang, CDDA. In addition to wanting to kill Cobra, he wished he had the tyrannical strength to kill the damn monster Liang by the way. Unfortunately, his ability is limited, Liang's strength is too strong, and it is boundless. He could only raise his head and look up at Liang's existence, but couldn't get close. In the darkness, only his back was left. He was thinking along the way, who is he looking for as a candidate for cooperation? There is no need for cooperation, just provide him with manpower, and he arranges a plan, that's enough. Rocco. Sadaloo frowned, shook his head and said, this guy is too cautious. Although, he also wants to replace Cobra. But now, with the existence of Liang, I'm afraid he won't dare to act rashly. Also, coupled with my very sensitive identity, he will definitely not join it and be caught. Therefore, this candidate must be given up. Besides, who else is left to provide me with manpower and material resources? Also, we have to make sure that these people will not report to Cobra and the others after they discover me. Quote. After thinking about it for a long time, there is still no suitable candidate. He walked into the alley step by step, and in the basically quiet alley, there was only the sound of his alone footsteps, which still reverberated around. Who to choose? This question has troubled him for more than half an hour, but he still can't think of a reason. Give up. No way. Sadaloo's eyes became crazy and he roared, I will never give up any of my enemies. Cobra, I will let him die. He will let him feel the taste of the death of a loved one. Who has a hatred with Cobra? Sadaloo fell into contemplation again, unable to be himself for a long time. After thinking about it for so long, he couldn't think of any answer, which made him grab the gray hair. His face became hideous, his eyes were bloodshot, and he stared at the dim street ahead without saying a word. At this moment, there are still many people looking for his trace. Once he is exposed, he will become the target of the public. Who to choose is a very meaningful question. For him, this is his only chance for revenge. If he fails, he must die. In the whole of Alabasta, there are only a handful of people who can provide him with human and material resources. Among them, Ekolem and others, as guards that Cobra absolutely trusted, were directly excluded by him. It is impossible for him to convince these people, and even, once he appears in front of these people, it will attract Thunder's blow. Wait, if it's him, it seems feasible. Suddenly, Thadloo's eyes flickered and he grinned, and, after that dinner party, he will definitely agree with my plan. It's a coincidence, it's really a coincidence, I believe he will be interested. Chapter 682-Conspiracy. Who are you looking for? There is already an answer in Sade Rhodes' heart. If it wasn't for some news he learned recently, he really wouldn't dare to find this person. After all, this man has made a lot of contributions to Alabasta in the past. It's even harder to get him to deal with Cobra's words. However, after the event of the dinner party, coupled with his secret push, this person will definitely be hooked. As for who is he? Of course, it's Kosha. The woman he loves was taken away by that Liang. No anger in his heart. No resentment. Doesn't he want revenge? After all, he clearly expressed his true feelings in front of Cobra. It's a pity that this fellow Cobra seems to despise Kosha. Or is it because Princess Vivi doesn't like Kosha? In any case, Kosha's heart must be full of resentment. If I said that after killing Cobra, let Princess Vivi be his wife, he will definitely agree. Quote. Thadloo thought so. This time, his target is Kosha. In the past, he and Kosha were mortal enemies. As the leader of the rebel army, Kosha fought against him no less than 10 times during the period when Crocodile ruled Alabasta. Between each other, they can't wait to kill each other. But now, Thadloo believes that he and Kosha are not without room for discussion. At least, Kosha and Cobra must be dissatisfied. So, start from here, and you will definitely get a good result. Thought here. Sade Rhodes' eyes twinkled brightly, looking at the desolate street, making up his mind, and approaching the designated direction step by step. In order to avoid being discovered by the guards, the routes he chose were the ones that were relatively inaccessible. Unobstructed all the way, completely unobstructed personnel. Soon, he arrived next to the walls of Kosha Castle. Enter from the main entrance. Chade sneered and shook his head in denial. Entering from the main entrance, this is his brain show. Otherwise, entering the main entrance will be a dead word. He was afraid that others would prevent him from entering, which would immediately arouse everyone's awareness. At that time, he could hardly fly. In addition, he was sour and smelly, and it was impossible to enter. Even if no one finds out his identity, with his current appearance, if he wants to meet Kosha, it can be said that the possibility is close to zero, and it is basically impossible for such a thing to exist. The only way is to sneak into it secretly. Kosha's castle is naturally different from the defense of the palace. In the palace, he had no way of entering, let alone evading the patrol of the guards. However, in Kosha's castle, the guards were only concentrated in the direction of the gate. As for the surroundings of the wall, very few people will come to tour. Therefore, he can only go over the wall. Making up his mind, he took a deep breath and crossed the short wall in one fell swoop. Into the eye, a quiet open environment. He quietly, avoiding everyone's detection, went directly to Kosha's address. Crunch. The door opens. Kosha was lying on the chair, expressionless, with his back to the back, and said bluntly, "Go out, I don't have any appetite to eat now." "Mr. Kosha, it's me." Sater's eyes narrowed slightly, smiled deeper. "No appetite." Chapter 682-Conspiracy. No appetite. Come to think of it, are you excited by that incident? Well. Kosha raised her brows, turned her head, and looked at Chade. Her pupils shrank. When he was about to shout, he was stopped by Chade and said bluntly, "Don't be in a hurry to shout, I won't hurt you. What's more, with your strength, do you still need to worry that I'm not good for you? Why are you here? Aren't you afraid that I will tell the guards immediately?" Kosha calmed down a little, with a calm face, and asked directly. "Of course I came to you to discuss a deal." Chade said slowly with a smile. Stench on his body made Kosha frown and said, "What deal?" "I'm going to kill Cobra." Chade straight to the point, without any pretense, said bluntly. "You're going to kill King Cobra? What are you doing to me? Are you crazy?" Kosha's expression changed slightly, and she said coldly, "Could it be, do you want me to help you kill King Cobra together? This is very much to your liking. Don't you think so in your heart? You don't need any cover up in front of me. Because, I can feel the anger and resentment in your heart. Don't hide it, because, like you, I am very angry and resentful, and I really want an enemy to vent. So, I found you." "Flowers." Chade continued, his expression unchanged, with a meaningful smile, said. Silence. Kosha's face was gloomy and uncertain, and the anger that had calmed down a little in his heart once again surfaced in his heart, and his eyes were firmly on Sad Road. He knew who he was facing, the prisoner wanted by the kingdom. "You haven't called anyone to arrest me now, so I can see what you're thinking. If not, you would have called someone long ago." Chade continued with a smile. He was confident that he could persuade Kosha. The other party did not call anyone, which showed a very important problem. That is, Kosha's heart also has the same idea as him. It's just that he's broken now, it doesn't matter anymore, and he doesn't need any cover-up. However, Kosha does not necessarily have to do this, the situation of the two is completely different. "You convinced me, tell me, what do you want me to do?" Kosha took a deep look at Chade and said in a low voice. "I knew it, and you would agree." Chade laughed out loud, and did not care about the stains on his body. He lay directly on the sofa, and stained the stains of the pile of garbage on the sofa. "Do you want to die? I can do it for you." Kosha's face was gloomy, full of murderous intent, and shouted. "Don't worry, I just want to rest. Besides, you don't mind if I wash up here and have some food first?" Chade said with a smile and said confidently. "Stop talking nonsense and talk about plans first." Kosha was expressionless, and spoke directly. Looking at your appearance, you're more anxious than me. It's no wonder, after all, the fat sheep you got was actually thrown into the arms of others. I can understand your mood. Sade Road smiled intriguingly, however, this may also be your wishful thinking. If you say another word, I'll cut your tongue off. Kosha's eyes flashed a thick murderous intent, and said coldly. Okay, I won't talk about it. Next, let's talk about how to plan and act. I know you are worried, so you can rest assured. The whole plan, you contribute, I contribute. The whole process will not involve you all. I can guarantee this. Thadlu understood Kosha's worries, so he took the lead in speaking, and directly eliminated the worries in the other party's heart. Chapter 683-Father-in-law is not easy. Inside the palace. In the hall, Cobra and Ekalem frowned and talked to each other. In front of them, Bell knelt down on one knee with a helpless expression on his face. Still haven't found it yet. Cobra took a deep breath and asked. King Cobra is a subordinate who neglected his duty and failed to find the shadow of Sade Road. He seems to have disappeared out of thin air, and there is no trace of him anywhere. Among them, there are garbage dumps, some hidden alleys, etc. I have sent people to search for these places one by one. I even searched for the sewers. Finally, there is still no trace of Sad Road. Bell shook his head, sighed, and said. He searched almost the entire capital, but could not find any trace of Sad Road. Since Sad Road was cut open by all the residents and arrested, the whole person seems to have evaporated from the world. This made Bell feel helpless. Even if he had the ability to fly, he flew several laps in the capital, but he didn't notice the trace of Seder Road. Can't find it. Cobra frowned and muttered to himself. He was very different from what he had imagined. Although Sade Road can escape, it is definitely impossible to escape for too long. But, what's the situation now? Sade Road actually disappeared. In this case, things will become very troublesome. If Thad Road makes a comeback, it is bound to deal a huge blow to Alabasta. By the way, the guards of the palace need to strengthen their manpower to prevent a sudden attack by Seder Road. This matter is left to you, Ekalem. Cobra looked at Ekalem beside him. Said. Yes. Ekalem nodded solemnly and agreed. The entire palace, naturally, cannot be attacked. If even the palace can't stop it, then they only have the last card left. But this is obviously impossible. There are many guards in the palace, each of them is elite. Saderlu wants to attack the palace, unless he is seeking his own death. By the way, what about Liang and Wei Wei? Cobra's eyes flashed and asked. Mr. Liang should still be in the garden with Princess Wei Wei. The two of them have been staying there for several hours. Ekalem thought for a while and answered truthfully. Then I have to remind Liang and let him pay attention to this guy Sade Road. Wei Wei can't have an accident. I believe that Liang is absolutely capable of protecting Wei Wei. Cobra's eyes flickered and he said slowly. If even Liang does not have the ability to protect Wei Wei, then there is basically no other person in the entire palace who can have this ability. Moreover, the palace may be beaten to collapse. An enemy that even Liang can't stop. Is it possible? In this world, is there really an enemy that even Liang can't stop? Perhaps, there may be. However, Cobra did not think that the Thad Road he knew had this strength. Liang's name, suppressing the Navy headquarters, this is no joke. If Thadlu had such an ability, how could he hide in Alabasta? He didn't know how to go to the New World for a long time, and how could he possibly make soy sauce in this small kingdom? Lord Cobra, I'll report it right away. Ekalem pondered for a moment and suggested. By the way, let him come over, he has a lot more knowledge than us. If we could ask him, we might get a different result. Cobra spoke again and said. Yes. Chapter 683-Father-in-law is not easy. Yes. After Ekalem nodded, he left quickly. And Bell, after Cobra announced the order, also gradually left. Regarding the inspection of the royal capital, there is still no need for any carelessness. Not sure, this guy Sade Road is hiding somewhere. It would take a lot of time to search the capital once again. In particular, if there is a blanket search, it is basically impossible without more than half a month. Therefore, it is reasonable to find Thad Road for a period of time, but Cobra is a little worried, but it does not mean that he thinks that Thad Road has escaped from Alabasta. Today, the coast is already guarded by many people. Escape from Alabasta is easier said than done. Afterwards, Equilem returned to the main hall. Beside him, Liang looked at Cobra who was in front of him with a smile, and said with a smile, "Father-in-law, may I ask my son-in-law, what is your order?" "You bastard." Cobra let out a laugh and relieved the tension a little. Unexpectedly, this guy Liang was so good, and all of a sudden, he directly called him his father-in-law. However, this is to be expected. Cobra sees the progress of Liang and Wei Wei, and this sentence, father-in-law, will naturally not be unfamiliar. "Do you remember the man you killed at the dinner party?" Cobra looked at Liang and said with a smile. At this time, Liang looked surprised, smiled, and said, "Of course I remember, is there any trouble?" He was really surprised. Could it be that the relatives of that person are looking for trouble? If that's the case, it doesn't seem to be a problem to use force to solve it. Anyway, it's good to solve it simply and rudely. Now that everyone is looking for it, he has to deal with it no matter what. After all, things started because of him. The series of things that happened later, he had to deal with it because of reason, and it could be regarded as something that would not cause trouble for his father-in-law. Besides, this little girl, Wei Wei, is still waiting outside. Liang didn't want to waste too much time on those ants. In his eyes, those who are looking for trouble, naturally, are all ants-like beings. His father, Thadlu, is also the foreign minister of Alabasta. Now, he is not wanted. What he has committed in the past has been thoroughly proven. So, I immediately issued a wanted notice. However, so far, he has fled. It is even more difficult for us to catch him now. Cobra's face became solemn and said, "Oh." Liang's eyes narrowed slightly, shining brightly. The things committed in the past have been thoroughly confirmed. This 1.0 talk sounds so weird. Could it be that the evidence has only been found recently? Do not. Rather, it has always been under the control of Cobra. However, because of what happened recently, Cobra chose to disclose the evidence. Looking at it like this, my father-in-law is not as simple as it seems on the surface. Liang thought so in his heart, but he didn't care. Being a king, in addition to winning the hearts of the people, a heart that can fight against conspiracies is naturally inevitable. A king can be kind, but not stupid. A kind and witty king will be loved by human life. But the kind but stupid king, no matter what he does, will arouse the disgust of the people. And Cobra, obviously the former, although kind, but without losing a wise head. Chapter 684 led snakes out of their holes. Such a king is in line with the image of a king in the minds of the people. But in many cases, there are also disadvantages. I won't talk much about it again. Every king, who can do it for so long, has its own advantages and disadvantages. After all, no one is perfect. Then dare to ask your father-in-law, how do you want me to do it? Liang looked calm and asked with a smile. Dealing with some cats and dogs or something, although very boring. However, since it was caused by himself, it is understandable that he only ends it again. If you do it, you don't need too much. I have already arranged a lot of people to look for his traces. Moreover, the strength of Seder Road itself is not very strong. So, just catch him, and he's done. I'm not worried about arresting him. What I'm worried about is that it will threaten Wei Wei's safety. Cobra's face changed and he said in a low voice. Wei Wei's safety is what he needs to worry about most. Heard. Liang smiled and said, Don't worry, my father-in-law, I will protect Wei Wei. If I can't even protect my woman, it would be better to die in the sea early. I'm naturally very at ease with your strength. Cobra showed a smile and nodded. Li Ang's strength, need more to say. This is the great man who suppressed the naval headquarters. If Li Ang can't guarantee Wei Wei's safety, who else in this world can? I remind you, I just want you to pay attention, nothing else. You also know that Wei Wei is my only daughter, and I can't imagine her having an accident. So, it's hard for you. During this time, please follow her side to protect her. I believe that she will also be happy to accompany you. I have also seen the feelings of the two of you. Cobra showed an intriguing smile and looked at Li Ang. Don't worry, Wei Wei will be fine. Li Ang nodded and said very easily. Not to mention Amir Shade Road. Even if the four emperors wanted to do something, the people around him would never be harmed. If he can't even do this, what qualifications does he have to make the Navy headquarters bow? However, if this is the case, being passive all the time is also a bad situation. We must turn passive into active in order to usher in victory. So, Li Ang looked at Cobra and suggested, if this continues, I think it will be more difficult to find him. Oh, so what do you think? Cobra looked at Li Ang, his eyes twinkled, and asked. Li Ang's opinion is naturally very important. Even if he was king, he had to listen. It is undeniable that in age, he is indeed much older than Li Ang. But when it comes to knowledge, identity, strength, strategy, etc., he is far inferior to Li Ang. Therefore, Li Ang's opinion is definitely much smarter than what he thinks. Since he doesn't show up, then we can try to think about it. What is he thinking about now? The corners of Li Ang's mouth were slightly raised, and he said slowly. What's he thinking now? Cobra thought for a moment and said in a low voice, I guess he wanted to escape from Alabasta, find a safe place, and make a comeback. No no no. Li Ang shook his head and said directly, he already knows that he can't escape. In this case, think about what he most desires to do. Both Cobra and Ekolem fell into contemplation, their brows furrowed. Their thinking could hardly keep up with Li Ang's words. Chapter 684 led snakes out of their holes. And GT, page 1/2. Please click the next page to continue reading. Their thinking could hardly keep up with Li Ang's words. After all, they are not experts in combat. Naturally, it is difficult for them to talk about these strategic issues. Vengeance. Suddenly, Cobra's pupils shrank, looking at Li Ang, said. That's right. Li Ang nodded with a smile. When a person loses his belief in survival and thinks he has nowhere to go, then, he will vent his inner anger, and he will bite back. In this case, he is the best it is possible to do something other than escape. Quote. He realized that escape was impossible. Then, the only remaining belief was revenge. Basically, it was human nature. When a person is in a desperate situation and has no way out, he will choose to risk his life and fight once. Quote. After these words, Cobra and Ekolem fell silent for a while. Undeniable. Li Ang's words are indeed very possible. At first, they thought that Thadlu would escape, and they continued to send forces to prevent the other party from going to sea. It seems that the other party may launch a counterattack against them. The counterattack before death must be quite intense. So, what do you think is a better way to do it? Cobra took a deep breath, corrected his learning attitude, and asked. In front of Li Ang, his so-called king's position was useless at all. When it comes to strategy, Li Ang alone has 10 of them. Regardless of his strength or his fighting IQ, Li Ang could crush him to the death. It's better to lead him out. Li Ang thought for a while and said slowly, he must be impatient to take revenge now. However, he also understands that the object of his revenge is me. It is not me who cares for him, so he should not choose me to do it. Then, there are only 2 people left for his revenge. Besides you, there is also Wei Wei. These 2 people are the main targets of his revenge. 507 inches. In this way, you can lure him to appear. At that time, as long as I catch his traces, he will be hard to fly. Li Ang's face was calm and continued. Let the snake out of the hole. Cobra smiled with a hint of surprise. This is a good way to draw out Thadlu himself, and then perform a thunderous strike, so that the other party can no longer turn over. What about the specific plan? Cobra continued to nod, like a curious baby, looking at Li Ang with burning eyes, and asked. This approach might actually work. As Li Ang said, as long as Sade Road appears. Under Li Ang's terrifying strength, does the other party want to escape? This is definitely not possible. At that time, whether Saderlu is a person or a team, he will be completely destroyed by Li Ang, which is beyond doubt. Li Ang shot, can there still be mistakes? Aside. Ekolem also showed a confident smile. If Mr. Li Ang is going to make a move, I'm afraid, the nightmare of this guy Sade Road is coming. Can Thadlu escape from Mr. Li Ang's palm? I'm afraid not, I was played to death, I don't know how to die. Jumping in front of Mr. Li Ang. I don't even know who I am. Chapter 685-plan. A specific plan. Does this require a plan? The corners of Li Ang's mouth moved slightly, and he smiled faintly. It's such a simple thing to lead a snake out of its hole. Basically, any plan can lead him out. As long as he has the intention of revenge in his heart, he will be fooled. This guy is a cunning old man. Cobra, still a little suspicious, whispered. Is it really that easy to be fooled? I still underestimate the mentality of a person who is facing despair. His mentality is completely different from that of him in ordinary times. He believes that he has no way out. Then, he has only two options, one, suicide, the other, revenge. In this case, he will definitely choose the second option. In this way, he will still look at the problem with a normal heart. Unless his head is really close to that of a demon. Otherwise, with the mentality of a minister, it's very difficult to miss the trick. Even if he knows it's a trap, he will be desperate. In general, it's a gambler's mentality. Li Ang's face was calm and he explained. Gambler's mentality. Cobra pondered for a moment, and seemed to understand. He didn't understand this feeling at all. At this time, Li Ang said, just imagine that he has lost his only son and is facing a desperate situation. In this situation, if he can still maintain a calm mind, then he will not be silent for so long. That's right. Ekolem nodded in agreement and said. However, there must be a specific method. Let's make preparations. Cobra, still confused, asked. The method is very simple. Hold an event, and then, a session will be set up. At that time, you will appear alone. Or, Wei Wei will appear alone. If he wants revenge, he will definitely do it. Li Ang's eyes flickered, and he said bluntly. Is it all right? Cobra, still a little nervous, asked. With me here, I can guarantee that no hair will be hurt by him. Li Ang nodded and said confidently. It's only Sad Road. If he couldn't deal with ordinary people, he would have died in the sea long ago. I'm relieved if you say it. Cobra nodded solemnly and said. With Li Ang's strength as a guarantee, he can also completely let go of his nervousness. If even Li Ang can't protect himself, then no one in this world can protect himself. In particular, the people facing him are only the mere Sad Road. It was embarrassing for him. The people from Sade Road don't know which area they are in. Only then will this plan be used to lead Thad Road out. If you had known the opponent's location earlier, you wouldn't need any plan at all, and if you directly attacked Wonglong, you could arrest Seder Road and kill the opponent on the spot. But unfortunately, Sadlu disappeared without a trace. It was as if it had evaporated in the world of the royal capital. This made him a little vigilant, and he couldn't help asking, could it be that Seder Road has been hidden in a certain minister's house? Of course it is possible. Li Ang nodded inadvertently. Besides, he is hiding in someone's house. is there any other explanation that can explain why he is hiding so deeply? He is also human, and he has to fill his stomach. If he is hiding, where will the food come from? Then, it is certain that someone is bringing him food. And where he is hiding is self-evident. It's just that it's a mystery to know whose home he is hiding in. Li Ang's remarks made Cobra silent for a moment. Really? There are too many ministers. If you want to find Sade Road, it will take a certain amount of time. Moreover, it is easy to scare the snake. Chapter 685-Planning. Moreover, it is easy to scare the snake. A search of the minister's home is bound to cause some unrest. Could Thadlu be unaware of these turmoil? At that time, it was the real vigilance that aroused Sade Road, and then completely hidden. In this way, it will be even more difficult to find the other party. The only way seems to be to act according to Li Ang's method. Mr. Li Ang is right. EPUB took a deep breath and suggested, "Can't you use me as bait?" He was still worried about the safety of both Cobra and Vivi. "You can't." Li Ang shook his head directly. "You are not the target of his revenge, so even if you show up, it doesn't make any sense, let alone attracting him. Only 2 people can attract Thad Road." "Is that so? Also ask Mr. Li Ang to ensure their safety." EPUB showed a bit of emotion and gritted his teeth. "Naturally, as my wife, how could I let her take risks? If there is no absolute certainty, I will definitely not do it." Li Ang said slowly with a serious face. Wei Wei's safety is in his hands. Without absolute confidence, he couldn't have put Wei Wei in such a dangerous position. He is quite confident in his own strength. Anyone who wants to do something to Wei Wei, he immediately notices it. Even if there is a sniper rifle 1,000 meters away, he can sense it and block the bullet in advance. This kind of ability can effectively curb the possibility that Wei Wei will be injured, which is basically close to zero. If there is danger, Li Ang is reluctant to let Wei Wei go out. After all, catching a fugitive. Still can't do it, putting Wei Wei in danger. Cobra reluctant. He is even more reluctant. Diaresis, let me be the bait. Cobra looked firm, looked at Li Ang, and said. Also, with me, no one will be hurt. Li Ang nodded and said confidently. He still knew very well about his own strength. Acting according to his plan, the success rate of arresting Thad Road is close to 90%. The remaining 10% failure rate is only a failure that exists because Thad Road may not appear. If Sade Road appears, then the success rate is as high as 100%. I trust your strength very much. Cobra nodded solemnly and said. Li Ang's strength has been recognized by the world Qian Lihao. No one needs to prove this. Just the word Li Ang has an extraordinary deterrent power. I have to think about the event. Try not to arouse Sud Road's suspicion. Cobra frowned and said in a low voice. Father-in-law, you should consider these things slowly. At that time, give yourself a separate space, and let that guy named Thadlu think he has an opportunity. That's enough. Li Ang waved his hand and prepared to leave. Good. Cobra nodded and said. Immediately. Li Ang twisted his arm and left the hall of the palace very calmly. Wei Wei, this little girl, is still waiting for her quietly outside. How can you delay too long for a mere small role here? If Wei Wei's cute and charming little angel waited for a long time, he was still very sorry. Chapter 686-Ready. Watching Li Ang's back gradually leave, Cobra and EPUB both fell into thinking. How to create an event that can inspire Sade Road. Moreover, it was necessary to prevent Thadlu from being aware of their plans. Lord Cobra, I think you haven't given a speech in a long time. EPUB's eyes twinkled, and he suggested in a low voice. Speech. The corner of Cobra's mouth moved slightly, and he said with a meaningful smile, this is a good way. The king's speech will not surprise people. Also, the crowd will be very close to me. This is a good opportunity. I believe that Thad Road will not miss it. Quote. That's it, Mr. Cobra, I'm going to prepare. Then, I will announce it and let everyone know that you are going to give a speech. The scale must be huge, so as to reduce the vigilance of Sade Road. EPUB nodded and said impatiently. The king's speech this time is not all fake. All I can say is, half-truth. In addition to attracting Sade Road, the speech must also be well prepared. It is equivalent to a real king's speech, but it is just a speech for the purpose of attracting the appearance of Sade Road, and the must be properly prepared. Taking advantage of this 257 opportunity, Cobra also gave a speech. Then I have to prepare. Let's hold a king's speech in the central square at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. There is no limit to the number of people. Cobra's eyes flashed a little bit of brilliance, said. In this speech, be sure to directly catch the guy Sade Road. Otherwise, if you miss this opportunity and let the cunning guy like Satyr notice it, it will undoubtedly be more difficult to lead the other party out in the future. Then I'll report to Mr. Liang first and let him prepare. Lord Cobra, you should prepare the speech. If it does not match, I'm afraid that Thadlu will not easily reveal the clues. EPUB thought for a while and said. You're right. Cobra nodded solemnly, very seriously. ... After leaving the palace, Liang successfully saw Wei Wei, who was waiting for him, standing alone by the wall, wearing a white plaid top and denim shorts, revealing a pair of long legs that were as white as jade, beautiful and moving. A head of sky blue hair, moving with the wind. A breeze blew and rolled up her wavy curly hair, revealing CDDF, a snow-white and delicate face, with a bit of ruddy blood, which was incomparably beautiful. Liang walked quietly, with a smile on his face, and approached Wei Wei's back. Suddenly, he stretched out his hands and wrapped his arms around Wei Wei's slender waist, causing Wei Wei to exclaim for a while, and glared at Liang with a dissatisfied face, which was really cute. Are you done talking? Wei Wei tilted her head, her pink lips parted slightly, and said in a low voice. Of course, in order to prevent my princess from waiting, I will resolve the matter quickly. After all, what could be more meaningful than talking to our princess? Liang said slowly with a smile. After these words, Wei Wei's pretty face turned red. She spat lightly. The devil believes you. Let's go and get ready. Tomorrow, something big is going to happen. Liang took Wei Wei's boneless little hand and said. What's the big deal? Wei Wei asked with a bit of curiosity in her beautiful eyes. She thought that the matter should have something to do with what Liang and Cobra talked about just now. Remember how much bellow I killed? The corners of Liang's mouth were slightly raised, looking at Wei Wei's snow-white cheeks, said. Well, what's the matter? Chapter 686-ready. Well, what's the matter? Wei Wei tapped her pointed chin lightly and asked. Liang explained, his father is going to launch an act of revenge. In order to prevent his revenge from succeeding, we must grab him in front of him and strike him with thunder. So, what happens tomorrow will be with him. Game. Sade Road. Wei Wei's pretty face was surprised for a while. I heard about it recently. I didn't expect him to be so bad before. I just thought he was not a good person. I didn't expect him to do so many bad things. Yeah, if he threatens others, I don't care. However, his existence has threatened the princess of my family. So, I must get rid of him to avoid future troubles. Liang hugged Hancock's waist with both hands and said softly. Immediately, Wei Wei's pretty face became even more red, and her heart was sweet. Hearing those words from the person she likes, naturally, her mood is indescribably excited. How to do it? Wei Wei continued to ask. I don't know, I'm just giving your father a proposal. Let them be ready to lead the snake out of the hole. Then, we will sweep the Sade Road. Liang waved his hand and said bluntly. Leading snakes out of their holes. What about specifics? Wei Wei was still puzzled and asked. I don't know that. Waiting for the arrival of tomorrow, presumably, everything will be clear. However, you don't have to worry, this game was proposed by me. Safety, 100%. The corners of Li Ang's mouth curled up slightly and said, "Of course I believe you." Wei Wei blushed and whispered. It sounded like a mosquito. Li Ang leaned over Wei Wei's mouth and asked with a smile, "What did you say just now?" The voice was too low, I couldn't hear it clearly. "Go to hell." Wei Wei glared at Li Ang angrily and said viciously. "It's so sad, my princess is so cruel." Li Ang put his arms around Wei Wei directly. With a smile, he picked up the opponent and spun his fist. Wei Wei exclaimed, feeling the warm embrace carefully, and a smile appeared on her face inadvertently. That innocent and pure smile is as beautiful as an angel. "Let's go and get ready." Li Ang let go of his hands, pulled Wei Wei's delicate little hand, and said. At this time, Wei Wei's whole face was flushed, her head was confused, she didn't know what she was thinking about. All in all, she just let Li Ang pull herself, unable to find a sense of direction. A breeze came blowing. Wei Wei's blue hair fluttered and moved with the wind that day, her beautiful eyes were lost, her left hand was held by Li Ang, and she was completely unable to act on her own. Li Ang pulled Wei Wei and quickly returned to the corridor. Crunch. After opening the door, Hancock, Tautu, and Tina were still fast asleep. The three girls were barefoot, and the little snow-white feet looked really cute. A pair of straight and slender snow-white jade legs made Li Ang's blood tumble all of a sudden. Due to the opening of the door, all three of Hancock were keenly aware of a movement, and could not help but open their eyes. After they saw that it was Li Ang, they regained their laziness, stretched their lazy waist, and lay down again, not too lazy to move. "You three little slackers," Li Ang said with a funny look at Hancock's three sleeping appearances. Chapter 687 _ The secret plan is in progress. The sun is in the center, and you haven't gotten up yet. Li Ang lifted the quilt helplessly, looking at the three women's huge figures. His throat was a little dry, and he almost couldn't help but continue fighting. In particular, the clothes Hancock was wearing showed off his fragrant shoulders as white as jade, and the two clusters of white flowers were looming, making Li Ang's blood boil. Aside. Wei Wei's pretty face flushed, and she quietly closed the door. She still felt a little shy looking at the bold clothes of Hancock and others. Even if she was a girl, she still couldn't do it so naturally. Seeing Hancock's figure, even she couldn't help but be amazed. This is simply the most perfect woman in the world. With an enviable face, and this crazy figure, there is no flaw. Her own words still seem a bit young and need to develop. And Hancock is already in the time period when women are the most beautiful, 040. Mature figure is self-evident, a delicate face, every word and deed, with infinite charm, with a smile, like 100 flowers blooming. I am so tired. Hancock pursed his pink lips and said cutely, "Let me sleep for a while." As the Empress of Chihuahua, she actually has such a lovely side. In other words, it can only be seen in front of Li Ang. "Looks like I'm going to use my trump card," Li Ang said slowly with a smile. He walked directly to Hancock's side, stretched out his hand and grabbed the other's small snow-white feet. His delicate toes were exposed and scratched on the other's soles. The itchy feeling made Hancock feel sleepy in an instant. Meimu glared at Li Ang angrily, and said, "What are you doing? Get up." Li Ang smiled and didn't let go. Instead, he directly grabbed the snow-white little foot and lightly pecked on the instep. Immediately. Not to mention that Wei Wei's face was blushing, even Hancock felt very shy, quickly struggled away, jumped up directly, slipped into the bathroom, and left a sentence. "I got up, I still don't believe it. This little girl." Li Ang laughed dumbly as he watched Hancock slip into the bathroom with bare feet. The huge movement just now awakened both Tautu and Tina. The two of them blinked and their long eyelashes trembled. After looking at Li Ang, they quickly raised their hands and surrendered. "We surrender, my husband. Go wash up quickly." Li Ang smiled and looked out the window. "The sun is shining in, you guys are still slowly swallowing, what a formality. I'll give you 5 minutes, otherwise, the family will serve you. 5 minutes. Tautu, Tina's pink lips are slightly open, and the United States and Europe are round. Cough, wrong, 15 minutes. Li Ang coughed dryly and corrected his words again. It's almost there. Tautu and Tina breathed a sigh of relief, quickly put on slippers, and slipped into the bathroom to wash. Their smooth hair was still tousled. If it weren't for their white and delicate faces, they would bring out their beauty. If an ordinary girl is like this, I'm afraid, it can be described as a lunatic. But their faces are so delicate that no matter how messy their hairstyles are, it can't affect their beauty. Seeing that the three of Hancock got up smoothly, Li Ang turned to look at Wei Wei and said with a smile, "Don't worry, all three of them are like this. You will get used to it later." Yeah. Wei Wei blushed and nodded lightly. However, suddenly her pretty face became hot. Will you get used to it later? Does this sentence imply anything? The more she thought about it, the more wrong it seemed. Li Ang was implying it. Why? Li Ang looked at Wei Wei suspiciously and asked. Chapter 687 _ The secret plan is in progress. Li Ang looked at Wei Wei suspiciously and asked. No, nothing. Wei Wei hurriedly shook her head, looking a little nervous. Her shy face was blushing, and her beautiful eyes looked at Li Ang shyly without blinking. Li Ang looked suspicious when he saw Wei Wei's appearance. What's going on? Not just a word. How did it suddenly change so much? Are women so weird? I really don't understand. 15 minutes later. Hancock, Tautu, and Tina came out of the bathroom one after another, neatly dressed and their hair straightened, smooth and without any trace of mess. Dressed in formal attire, coupled with the snow-white delicate face, and the tall devil figure, it brought out their charm even more, which made Li Ang couldn't help but be amazed. If Wei Wei joins the team, there will be 4, equivalent to 4 charming angel-like characters. In this way, going out, the rate of return is absolutely 100%. Not to mention men, even women, I am afraid, will be fascinated by the faces of the 4 women. Summarized in one sentence. The face of an angel, the figure of a devil. Described as 4 charming fairies. Hancock, you seem to have grown again. Tina's pink lips parted slightly, looking at Hancock with a bit of amazement, said. Really, I don't feel it. Hancock was a little suspicious, looked at his 2 groups, and said strangely. She didn't feel it when she was growing, but, it seemed, she was bigger than everyone present. Such a figure made her delicate face even more proud. I'm so jealous. Tautu's beautiful eyes flickered and joked. What's the matter, you are also developing. Hancock glanced at Li Ang, and Mamo said with a bit of shame. All of this was naturally brought about by Li Ang. However, when they think of the source of all this, they feel extremely shy. Since sitting with Li Ang for some indescribable things, the growth of his body has become more and more obvious. Okay, let's go and stay here. Li Ang took a deep breath and then withdrew his gaze. Looking further, he was really afraid that he would not be able to go out again today. However, at present, it is not a good thing to let Wei Wei get in touch too early. If it's too early, Wei Wei can't accept this kind of thing, and coercion is not the result that Li Ang wants. Everything has to be done in a loop. However, this day, Li Ang believes, is not far away. With the current emotional heating up, Wei Wei will soon be able to accept more intimate actions. And then, everything will fall into place. Thinking of this, Li Ang's smile grew brighter. This is not in vain, he has been talking with Wei Wei and the 2 of them constantly these days, and they are running in. Obviously, the effect is also quite significant. The relationship is also constantly intensifying. Moreover, there are more and more intimate actions that can be done. Even Wei Wei's first words have been handed over to him, so, will the next thing be far behind? Li Ang didn't want to speed up the things that were about to come naturally, and he didn't want to destroy the things that could be realized gradually. When the time comes, what should come will always come. But that didn't stop him. A picture of reverie appeared in Li Ang's head. Doing that with Wei Wei would be really fun. How shy is this little girl? Chapter 688-Sublime Layout. Soon. Li Ang took Hancock and other 5 people and gradually walked out of the door. Oncoming, Ecolem seems to have been waiting for a long time, waiting for Li Ang at the end of the corridor. Mr. Li Ang. Ecolem said with a kind smile. What's the matter? Li Ang was a little surprised. He left the hall just now. Is there any change at this moment? That's it, Lord Cobra has decided to hold a king's speech. Ecolem told the truth. The king's speech. Li Ang didn't know why. He had never been to Alabasta, and naturally he didn't know what kind of situation this so-called king's speech was carried out. Aside. Wei Wei calmed her breath a little and said in a low voice, the king's speech is because the father is worried about all the people in the capital. Anyone who wants to participate can come to the scene. Then, let the father cut off the speech. Talk about all kinds of things in Alabasta. At that time, there will be a lot of people on the scene, and there are no restrictions. So, the scene will definitely be sensational. The father will also stand in the eyes of everyone. After a few words, Li Ang basically understood the specific 23 meaning of Cobra. Do you use the king's speech to attract the appearance of Sade Road? If so, it seems to be quite reliable. Moreover, Sade Road may have accomplices. In this way, Cobra was exposed to everyone's sight, and once Thadlu was dispatched, his accomplices would definitely be dispatched. All at once, it can save a lot of trouble. Lord Cobra, let me inform you. Ecolem nodded, agreeing with what Vivi said. Subsequently, he left gradually, and there are still many things waiting for his deployment. I see. Li Ang narrowed his eyes slightly and said slowly. Since it is the king's speech, there are bound to be a lot of people. In that case, he would change his original measures. However, for him, these things are not difficult. As long as the arrogance spreads, anyone's every move, including inner thoughts, will appear in his head. With the thoughts in these people's hearts, he was able to screen out those people with impure goals in the first place. Even, it is not impossible to directly discover Seder Road. In this way, the efficiency of work will also skyrocket. Moreover, the possibility that Cobra will be attacked is also ruled out. Take precautions in advance. Li Ang's knowledge is domineering, and his ability is naturally very convenient. Find those people who are hidden in the crowd in advance, and then pull them out to avoid fighting before you start in time. It seems that this method is more worry-free. Li Ang smiled and whispered to himself. Immediately, he looked at the 4 of Hancock and said with a smile, let's go, let's check, what else is negligent. By now, the arrangement should have begun. Yeah. Hancock and Wei Wei nodded lightly. A group of 5 people gradually wandered around the entire palace. The scene I saw was a group of guards preparing and arranging tasks. Ecolem is in charge of himself, and Bell and Gaka, 2 animal-type capable people, as adjutants, will accompany Ecolem and be responsible for the safety of tomorrow's speech at the scene. Do you know what you will be responsible for tomorrow? Now, stand up immediately and recite it for me. Ecolem said with an expressionless face. In the face of this kind of thing, he dare not have the slightest carelessness. A guard stood up, took a deep breath, and spoke slowly. Chapter 688-Exquisite Layout. A guard stood up, took a deep breath, and spoke slowly. Good. Ecolem nodded with satisfaction, looked at Bell beside him, and instructed, tomorrow, you lead this team and guard the scene. Prevent anyone from attacking, and, most importantly, be sure to observe the crowd. There is no sign of Todd Road. Yes, Captain. Bell nodded solemnly and agreed. The importance of tomorrow's events cannot be overstated. Naturally, he knew that tomorrow, he had to play a 12-point spirit. This time I couldn't catch Seder Road, and it would be even more difficult to catch him in the future. Okay, let's all disperse. We will each carry out the tasks that I have instructed, and everyone must act cautiously. What will happen tomorrow will be different from the past, have you heard clearly? EPUB shouted loudly. Listen clearly. A group of guards nodded quickly and shouted. It's all gone. After EPUB finished speaking, all the guards dispersed. According to his orders, they are preparing for tomorrow's mission. He looked at Belle and Gaka who were beside him and instructed, then you two should also be on guard. You have a deep understanding of the cunning of this guy Sade Road, and you can't be careless. Yes, Captain. The two nodded and patted their chests for assurance. At the same time, EPUB saw Liang and the four daughters not far away, and there was a bit of respect on his face. This time, the most important task is to see Liang. This is also the most important part, and it is basically impossible to go wrong. With Liang's terrifying strength as his trump card, he can arrange some things with confidence. Even if the guards made a mistake, in the end, there was Liang to make amends. No one can kill the person the other party wants to protect in front of Liang. This is Liang's strength. Mr. Liang. EPUB exhaled heavily, walked in front of Liang, and bowed his hands respectfully. This is you. I'll take a look at your arrangement. The corner of Liang's mouth raised an arc, and he smiled. Then I don't know if Mr. Liang sees any problems and needs improvement. 027. EPUB couldn't help asking. No need, that's it. If there is a flaw on purpose, it is likely to be detected. So, everything should be shown as much as possible, like a real king's speech. Liang shook his head and said bluntly. He didn't count on those guards at all. The existence effect of the escort is only used to numb Sadru's senses. Let the other party think that the king's speech this time is real, not to seduce him. The most important person is Liang himself. As long as Sade Road appears at that time, if he wants to escape Liang's arrest, it will be as difficult as going to the sky, unless Sade Road can really fly. But even if he could really fly, he couldn't escape in front of Liang. In the field of speed, Liang ranked first. Even Huang Yuan didn't dare to be big in front of Liang. Just an ordinary minister. He used such a big battle just to capture him. Even if he died, he should feel honored. Liang had never had such a complicated experience even when dealing with the headquarters of the Navy. But this time the enemy to deal with is not too strong, but too good at hiding. Therefore, there must be some plan to lure the appearance of the place. Otherwise, the other party is only afraid that they can hide in one place for several years. Liang didn't have time to stay here for so long, so he had to kill this potential threat in advance. Chapter 689 _ The Prelude to the War. As you wish, Mr. Liang. EPUB nodded and greeted him with a smile. The biggest support here is Liang. Tomorrow's task, the most critical task is Liang. All the guards are just a pretense, and they are just throwing themselves into the net in order to perfunctory this guy Sade Road. Thinking of this, he had some doubts in his heart, and asked, Mr. Liang, do you think he will really come? At this time, we suddenly launched a king's speech, he will not doubt it. Yes, of course he will doubt it. However, he has no choice. Even if he knows it's a trap, he will fight once again for revenge. The corners of Liang's mouth were slightly raised, and he said slowly. If it were him, he would come too. There is only one chance to take revenge, otherwise, he will hide in the dark forever and live as a mouse crossing the street. This painful day, he believes, is unbearable for anyone. And now, there is a chance for revenge, and if Thadlu is not moved, it is naturally impossible. Even if he knew that there would be great risks, he would come as scheduled for revenge. This point, Liang has a 90% chance to be sure. Indeed. EPUB agrees. Immediately, after announcing his departure, he gradually joined the arrangement again. In place, only Liang and his party were left. Everyone, shall we go out and see the venue? Liang looked at the delicate faces of the four Hancocks in front of him and asked. Where to go? Tina's pink lips parted slightly and asked. Go to the central square. Tomorrow's king's speech will start there. And my task is to get rid of a person hidden in the royal capital. Tomorrow, he is very likely to appear. So, for now, should we go and find out the situation of the terrain? Li Ang said with a smile. Terrain. Do you really care about this kind of thing? Hancock looked at Li Ang suspiciously, his red lips moved slightly, and he said strangely. Terrain. In Li Ang's eyes, does this kind of thing really exist? Isn't it just crushing it with absolute strength? Ha 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 diaresis. Li Ang laughed loudly, rubbed Hancock's black hair, and said bluntly, you still know me best, Hancock. Since that's the case, let's have a good walk in the palace today. Yeah. The women did not object. Under the leadership of Li Ang, he gradually walked around the palace. Along the way, I saw a group of guards, all preparing to speak to the king tomorrow. Every guard did not dare to be careless. The king gave a speech, and Cobra appeared in person, and it was necessary to prevent any suspicious elements who would attack Cobra. Their task is also very difficult. But they didn't know that the speech was just a pretense, and the real purpose was to find out Thad Road. Naturally, the task of uncovering Satyr Road could not be given to them. The most important thing is to see Li Ang. The other side. After Cobra gave the order, the guards also assigned one by one, walked in the capital, and issued a notice to let everyone in the capital know. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, Cobra will give an annual king's speech. Coincidentally here. Chapter 689 _ The Prelude to the War. Coincidentally here. This year's king's speech has not yet been held. So, Cobra held a king's speech without causing anyone to notice. They will not think that this game is also Anjong, from beginning to end is just a pretense. Of course. It cannot be said that it is all a pretense. The of the king's speech is still based on the analysis of the situation over the past year. The inside can be said to be carefully prepared by Cobra. Suffice to say, it was a wonderful king's speech even if Thad Road didn't show up. Except for the purpose of eliciting Sade Road, there is no difference between the king's speech and the usual king's speech. In this way, it can also effectively reduce Satyr's vigilance for this king's speech. As long as he shows up, everything will be fine. At this time, the entire capital of Alabasta, on the streets. A famous guard issued a notice, so that everyone has received the news covering the entire capital. The king's speech, is it going to start tomorrow? This year's king's speech is finally about to start. I've been waiting for a long time, and finally, it's about to start. I don't know what King Cobra is going to do, but as long as King Cobra appears safely, we can rest assured. I heard that King Cobra has recovered. A genius doctor from some unknown source directly relieved King Cobra from his symptoms. Quote. The crowd roared. They held the notice, and there were bouts of chatter. This news is circulating in the real capital. Everyone is talking about it, and naturally many people will take it to heart about the king's speech. This not only involves the future of Alabasta, but also involves every citizen in Alabasta. It can be said that this is a very important event. At that time, I am afraid that the central square will be surrounded by water. Everyone will listen to the words of King Cobra. His words, for all the people, are famous words, and they can also have side effects, how Alabasta will develop next year. When it comes to the kingdom they live in, they will naturally be very concerned. Diaresis, I hope that the king's speech this time will bring better development next year. Yeah, we went through that incident some time ago. The whole of Alabasta has become extremely impoverished. It has to change in order to develop faster. It's just about development. It's easier said than done. Our current economic level is still too low. The desert area is huge, and there are still many droughts. Although it is not as exaggerated as before, it is still miserable. Quote. Of residents helplessly shook their heads and sighed, talking in a low voice. If they were not ruled by crocodile, their current economic level would naturally be more than that simple. Unfortunately, at that time, their entire kingdom was in vain. Under the direct rule of Crocodile, even the rainfall was controlled. The drought in the entire Alabasta is not something that can be recovered in a short time. This king's speech is what they are looking forward to. It is best that there are some development plans for next year in Alabasta, and tell them in detail, so that they have a bottom line. Especially in terms of commerce, Alabasta's commerce is too weak. Many people are reluctant to arrive in Alabasta because of the terrain here. But fortunately, it has not reached the point of desolation. The entire royal capital was buzzing with excitement. The prelude to the king's speech is gradually opening. Chapter 690-All or Nothing Gambler Psychology. The royal capital, a certain castle. It was late at night, and the lights were on. A wisp of dim light radiated out, dispelling the darkness around him. Hall. On the sofa, Kosha, the Minister of Environment of the Kingdom of Alabasta, lay on the sofa with a dignified expression, holding the notice just issued by the kingdom in both hands. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, the king's speech. Kosha frowned and muttered to herself. At this time, in the position opposite him, an old man grinned and said, "King's speech, this guy Cobra really gave me a chance. He is naturally the wanted Sade Road, and he has been hidden in Kosha's home. This is something that many people cannot expect. No one could have imagined that Thadlu and Kosha had reached a cooperation agreement. Of course. The big reason was just because Kosha was very dissatisfied with Cobra, especially since his intentions were already obvious. Cobra still didn't give him a response. Aren't you afraid of being a trap?" Kosha looked calm, looked at Sade Road, and asked in a low voice. "Trap?" Sade Road laughed. "If it's a trap, then I recognize it too. Could it be that if I don't act this time, will there be another chance? I don't think I can wait so long. That's right, for you, instead of lingering on, it's better to go all out and seek a chance for revenge. This kind of gambler's mentality is more suitable for you now." 990. Kosha nodded, expressing understanding. "You have nowhere to go, and you don't have any backup force. Tomorrow is your only chance. If you don't do it, you won't have a chance in the future. So, no matter the trap is not a trap or something. Anyway, I will definitely do it tomorrow. Even if it is a trap, I will also want revenge. What's more, if you sneak attack on Cobra, no one may be able to find it." Sade Road's smile became more and more strange, with a strong murderous intent. Tomorrow's king's speech is exactly what he sees as the greatest opportunity. Once he misses tomorrow's opportunity, it is basically impossible for him to deal with Cobra. In this way, he also needs to maintain the current situation. As a fugitive, he is like a mouse crossing the street. Wherever he goes, he will be found and pursued. If he misses tomorrow's opportunity, he will have to repeat those days. As for development forces, in Alabasta, he is already a rat. How can he develop his own power? In addition, the shore was surrounded by a group of guards, and even if he had wings, it would be difficult for him to leave from high altitude. Alabasta has been imprisoned from the coast in every way. Those ships CDAA are allowed to leave only after careful inspection. And as soon as he appeared, I was afraid that his identity would be discovered immediately. Therefore, he would have thought about leaving Alabasta at first, but now, he almost dared not think in this direction. "How many people do you want?" Kosha looked at Sade Road and asked directly. He is involved, only responsible for dispatching people, without exposing himself. He had to be careful to make sure he put aside his relationship with Thad Road. If the other party fails, he will not lose too much. If he succeeds, then he will be a big step closer to his goal. 20 elites. Sadalu thought for a while, looked at Kosha, and said bluntly. 20 elites are the manpower budget he needs most conservatively. Killing Cobra is not easy. At that time, the number of guards on the scene is large, and he has to arrange a complete plan before he dares to continue. 20 elites. A little more. Kosha raised her brows and shook her head. Chapter 690_All or Nothing Gambler's Psychology. Kosha raised her brows and shook her head. It's not that he can't take out the 20 elites, but if all of them are buried, it will be a big loss for him. This bet is a bit of a loss. Not much. Want to kill Cobra? Do you think it's that easy? Sade Road shook his head. His tone was firm, and he said, 20 is the number that I have compressed to the extreme, and I have only said it. At least, I have a 40% certainty to kill Cobra. 40%. Kosha was silent for a moment. The confidence of 40% is already very high. You know, that is King Cobra, a king of Alabasta, with a 40% chance of killing it, but a very high probability. Okay, 20. Kosha looked at Sade Road, took a deep breath, and nodded. 20 elites, if he can take the head of Cobra, he still earns. When Cobra died, his status naturally rose. Not necessarily impossible, to become a new ruler. When it comes to people's hearts, he still has a lot of status. Wait a minute. Sade Road waved his hand and said, I must emphasize one point. These 20 elites must guarantee their loyalty. If they are allowed to kill Cobra midway, they hesitate because of the wavering of their beliefs. Then the plan will be half failed. Quote. You can rest assured on this point. The people I choose are naturally dead men who will absolutely obey orders. They take my orders as absolute. There is no such thing as the so-called possibility of seeing Cobra and being unable to act. Kosha said confidently, with a meaningful smile on his face. That's the best. Sade Road nodded and relaxed a little. As long as the person's elite is enough, then he can rest assured to make plans. 9 o'clock tomorrow. Thinking of this, his mood could not be concealed. His eyes were full of flames that wanted revenge, and he grinned. Cobra, wait, I'm coming to kill you. These 20 people must have never appeared before. If people find out that the helper is from my side, then my identity will be in jeopardy. Kosha thought to herself. He must not be so stupid, and the dispatched personnel are recognizable by Cobra. Being recognized means that he has to bear the consequences of turning against Cobra. Although it is now against each other, it is only his unilateral action against Cobra. If things are exposed, it will not be so easy to deal with. He would be wanted, as a wanted criminal, and stripped of all identities. Even though he had made great contributions to Alabasta in the past, he could not escape the sanction of the king's law. Privately planned to attack the king. This crime is enough to kill him 10 times, but it is not enough to quell the anger of the people. Now Cobra is still popular with the people. If he rebels, he will become a rebel army, and the people's will is Cobra. Then, he will be reduced to a character like a big villain, who is not ashamed of human life. If I fail, I have to prepare accordingly. Kosha narrowed her eyes slightly, thinking in her heart. In any case, it is impossible for him to put his life on Sad Road. To give the other party a little manpower, it has already paid a lot. Want him to put his identity on it? This is a joke. He wasn't so stupid yet, and he didn't have the need to make himself desperate and risk himself to do this kind of thing. Chapter 691 Before everything starts. Alabasta, inside the palace. Even at night, the palace still shines with a bright halo. The guards increased rather than decreased, and patrolled around the palace to prevent anyone from attacking rashly. The sound of footsteps echoed in the quiet night. It shows that these guards are meticulous and sincere and serious about their work. The splendid crystal tilde lamp hangs high in the sky. Cobra frowned, looked at Ecolem, and asked, "How's it going?" "Lord Cobra, the arrangement is almost done. Just wait, tomorrow comes, and we will be able to wipe out the Thad Road," Ecolem said with a serious expression. Regarding the arrangement of the guards, he has already arranged it. Moreover, in order to prevent the chain from falling off at the critical moment, he repeatedly pressed some of the team leaders who led the team, making these team leaders have a deep memory. They have all been clear about what to do tomorrow, and naturally there will be no errors. Everything will go as usual with speeches. Cobra nodded and said, "It is not the first time that the king's speech has been held. He is already familiar with such magma. Although the king's speech tomorrow is different from the usual one. But what he wants to do is no different from ordinary speeches. What is the biggest difference? Naturally, everything is on Liang. As for the other guards, they only served as eyes and ears. It was used to paralyze the man Sade rode, so that he would not run away. But come to think of it, Thadlu couldn't be so stupid that he didn't notice anything. But whether he will come or not, this matter is really hard to say. My speech materials are also ready. Just wait, tomorrow will come." In order to capture Sade Road, so much power was used. It would be a pity to return without success. Fortunately, the king's speech is once a year, even if he doesn't show up. This year, I also completed the king's speech, which is a worry. Cobra smiled and said slowly. After finishing the king's speech, it can be considered that he can breathe a sigh of relief. A speech is given every year. Although during the time of Crocodile's rule, it was interrupted. However, the order in Alabasta has been restored, and everything will naturally return to the past. Even this king's speech is no exception. Just look, Mr. Liang's. Equilem said with a touch of admiration. With the presence of a big man like Liang, I always feel that things are already under control. The only thing to worry about should be whether there will be a problem with Sade Road. This is what they need to worry about. If Sade Road does not appear, everything will be empty talk. But this possibility is not very big. Not only because of Liang's statement, but even Cobra also believes that, according to Thadalu's character, he will definitely have his thoughts about tomorrow's king's speech. Okay, you go to rest, I have to catch up. Try to check the complete information several times tomorrow. Cobra waved his hand and said. Lord Cobra, then I'll leave first. After Equilem nodded, he gradually left the palace. Cobra, on the other hand, is still checking the data. The king's speech is not an ordinary thing. Even if he is a king, he does not dare to be careless in the slightest. You must be cautious, and there can be no mistakes in any word. His words are an important factor in the next development of Alabasta. All the people in Alabasta are changing because of his words. ... At night, the crooked moon is like a boat, swimming in the sky. A hazy halo shone down. Liang, Hancock, Wei Wei and others also gradually returned to their respective rooms. Chapter 691 before everything starts. And LT, 29 and GT. Liang, Hancock, Wei Wei and others also gradually returned to their respective rooms. Before leaving, Wei Wei made an amazing move. I see. She looked at Liang with her beautiful eyes, bit her pink lips lightly, stood on tiptoe, quickly pecked at the corner of Liang's mouth, and fluttered her soft sky blue hair, like a bunny, and jumped away. This little girl. Liang looked at the back of Wei Wei's departure, wiped the corner of his mouth, and smiled. It can be clearly seen that even though they are far apart, the crimson blood of Wei Wei has spread to the position of the snow-white neck, making Liang clearly visible. This bold move can also be officially announced, and the relationship goes further. In the past, it was Liang who took the initiative. This time, it was the shy Wei Wei who took the initiative. This is a very obvious progress, which makes Liang's smile even brighter. He turned his head, looked at the pretty faces of Hancock, Tautu, and Tina, and said with a smile, let's go back. Flowers. I didn't expect this little girl, Wei Wei, to be so bold. Hancock's red lips parted slightly, his teeth revealed, and his delicate face also showed a bit of surprise. Tautu and Tina's expressions weren't much better either. It stands to reason that a shy person like Wei Wei can take the initiative to get to this point, which is already quite remarkable. Look, the shy little girls are so active. So, what about you? The corner of Liang's mouth raised an arc, and said with a smile. What kind of bad idea did the bastard have? Tina's pink lips moved slightly, she said with a bit of suspicion and blushing. Come on, say we don't take the initiative. Let you admit defeat tonight. Hancock's pretty face blushed, and Mei said with a bit of confidence. Let me admit defeat. Then you have to be stronger. Liang laughed loudly and led the three daughters into the room. Boom. The door closed tightly. At the same time, in the room, a terrible war was taking place. The clothes were messy and scattered on the ground. That charming little Nene really made people think. Liang, as fierce as ever, attacked Hancock at once. Just started. Hancock also muttered confidently. With Liang's stormy attack, she couldn't take it any longer, and hurriedly raised her hand to surrender. Also said that he vowed to make me admit defeat. Liang couldn't help laughing when he looked at Hancock's weak limbs. I will definitely beat you next time. Hancock's face was crimson, and he was indescribably beautiful. She bit her red lips lightly, her shyness enveloped her whole little heart. Next. Liang attacked Taotu and Tina again. However, this night, naturally, you can't be so indulgent. There will be a speech tomorrow, asking him to deal with Sade Road, so he still has reservations. But even with reservations, Hancock, Taotu, and Tina surrendered to him in the battle, completely unable to threaten his status. Outside the window. It was dark. The night before the king's speech. The whole of Alabasta revealed a peaceful atmosphere. Chapter 692 * Wait for the fish to take the bait. The next day. The sun rose high, dispelling the coldness of the night. The whole of Alabasta, in this early morning, is full of lively and noisy atmosphere. Everyone has woken up early. The king's speech is a very serious and solemn event for all the residents of Alabasta. Therefore, they are here in the capital, and naturally they have to go to witness it. Almost every resident in the royal capital was ready to rush to the king to give a speech. Guys, I'm going out first, I have to get a good seat. By the way, help me also take a place. Otherwise, there will be too many people next, and I can't even see the shadow of King Cobra. You're thinking too much. How dare I take a seat? It's not like I was kicked out by others. Side of the street. The crowd roared, and there were rounds of discussions surrounding the king's speech. 4080. The direction to be developed this year, and the goals to be achieved next year, etc. The development of Alabasta, the direction that they can understand a little bit, is in the king's speech held by Cobra today. This is what everyone is looking forward to. There are still many people concerned about the development of Alabasta. Especially after the events of Crocodile, each of them knew the importance of a strong kingdom. If Alabasta is not strong, similar things may happen in the future. The area of the central square. It was only about 7 o'clock. The crowd is full of people, and the eyes are full of black crowds. The vast majority of people, very early, came here at 4 or 5 o'clock and started chatting. Damn, what the fuck, why are there so many people? I thought I was early enough at 7 o'clock to get a good spot. Young man, don't think about it. Old man, I got up at 6 o'clock when I came here. It was already crowded and wanted to find a good spot. Let's forget it. Oh my god, they're crazy to be here so early. It's normal, after all, you have to think about it. How long has it been since we in Alabasta have a state speech? There was a lot of talk, and the whole scene was lively. However, there are still 2 minutes before Cobra's appearance. These people, 2 hours in advance, had already arrived at the scene. Visible. The importance they place on the king's speech this time. Otherwise, it is impossible to come here to occupy a good position when the sun has not risen at 4 or 5 o'clock. Fortunately it's early. A group of old men standing in the front position said with excitement. Only the old men like us can get up so early. It's basically difficult for young people today to get up so early. It's okay if we don't, so we can grab a good spot first. If we don't come early, we'll be squeezed out, and at our age it's very difficult to hear what King Cobra has to say. Quote. Communicating with a group of people. The whole scene was lively and noisy, and the flow of people was very large. Everyone is very curious and looking forward to the next king's speech. Originally a commercial street, it has turned into a lively scene with a lot of people. I heard that King Cobra's injury has healed. I just hope it's not a joke. King Cobra has been so good to us, so there's nothing wrong with his health. An old man clenched his fists and said with hope. Cobra still holds considerable weight in the hearts of the people. Chapter 692 Wait for the fish to take the bait, NGT, page 1/2. Please click the next page to continue reading. NLT, 31 NGT. Cobra still holds considerable weight in the hearts of the people. Because of the previous incident, the fakes that caused everyone's impression of Cobra to plummet have also been known to everyone. It turned out that it was Mr. Cobra who was impersonated. During that time, they literally hated Cobra. But after the answer was revealed, they unreservedly showed their admiration for Cobra. King Cobra, it will be all right. Another young man gritted his teeth and said firmly. None of them hope that a good king who loves his country and his people will be exhausted because of his health. Wait, King Cobra will be there. Now that the notice has been given, King Cobra will never let our pigeons go. A group of people thought firmly. At 7 o'clock, the place was already surrounded by water, and the crowded scene made people wonder if the entire royal capital had been concentrated in this place. It's no wonder that there are too many people here. Into the eyes, are densely packed people. They were crowded with each other, men and women, young and old, chatting with each other, looking at the high platform in front of them with anticipation. There, it will be the place where Cobra will appear, and everyone can see the existence of Cobra. People farther away may not be able to hear Cobra's words, but through Yinbei, things that most people can hear clearly can be achieved. It is basically impossible to give a speech in the presence of so many people with just Cobra's voice. Even if everyone didn't speak, the sound of breathing alone would block Cobra's words. At the same time, far in a castle on another street, Kosha narrowed his eyes slightly, looked at Sade Road, and asked, "Are you ready?" Of course. Sade Road nodded, glanced at the 20 elites around him with satisfaction, and believed himself. These elite, well-equipped, but also disguised as ordinary people. If you go out dressed neatly, it will be too conspicuous. Therefore, Sade Road must do a good job of camouflage. Even himself, he also changed his clothes and distribution, and his face was stained with some colored stains, which effectively covered his original appearance. Plus, he was wearing a hat, and it was difficult for anyone to see his face once he lowered his head. In this way, he can effectively avoid all the guards' checks. And, squeeze into the crowd, and will not be discovered by others. Let's go then. Kosha's face was calm and she said bluntly. All of his hopes were placed on Sade Road. If Sade Road fails, it has little to do with him in 4.1. He has never acknowledged the partnership with Thad Road. Presumably, it is impossible for Cobra to listen to the slander according to Sade Road's few words. In particular, as the Minister of the Environment, he was originally powerful. And Sade Road is just a fugitive, and basically no one will believe what he says. Kosha can completely use it. The other party wants to sow discord, attacking Sade Road back and forth, in order to put aside the relationship between himself and the other party. Of course. If successful. Kosha's eyes shone brightly, and it was hard to hide her excitement. If successful, he can climb to the top. Moreover, he doesn't have to worry about Cobra's existence. He can go public and express his most sincere heart to Princess Weiwei. Without Cobra as an obstacle, he is very confident that he can definitely succeed. NLT, 32 and GT. Chapter 693 _ the beginning of everything. Vaguely, Kosha seemed to see the dawn of victory, getting closer and closer to him. Thinking of this, he couldn't wait to look at Sade Road and asked, the success rate is still 40%. More than that, now I think it's 50% sure. Sade Road shook his head and said with a strong confidence. His eyes twinkled, and he didn't know what he was thinking about. However, today, he has to do it. Whether it is a gambler's mentality or a desperate gamble, anyway, if he misses today, he will regret it for the rest of his life. Can't kill Cobra, he will always be in Alabasta. As a street rat, everyone shouts and beats. Let's go, I'll wait for the good news from you. Kosha smiled even more and said directly. Nature. Thadlu nodded and turned around, carrying a dagger and several bottles of deadly poison in his arms. These materials were all prepared by Kosha. Cobra is just an ordinary person. He only needs to poison the other party and contaminate it with a trace. Then, Cobra has no cure and is powerless to recover. To kill an ordinary person who is protected by many guards, Thadro does not have any, it is impossible to complete. On the contrary, if you kill a person with terrifying strength, he can't even get close, and he will be exposed on the spot. For example, a terrifying monster like Liang. Thadlu never thought that he would seek revenge on Liang. The object of his revenge has always been on Cobra's head, because Liang is too strong, so strong that he loses his courage. Unless he really wants to kill himself, then he will choose Liang as the target of revenge. However, I'm more than satisfied to kill a cobra. Sater's eyes narrowed slightly, thinking so in his heart. Killed Cobra, and Alabasta was leaderless. As long as he is not caught on the spot, he still has the opportunity to fly away, or stay in Alabasta to develop his power. Once Cobra dies, with Kosha's means, he will definitely become a high-ranking official. Therefore, Thadlu can think that his cooperation with Kosha is far from over. Immediately, Sade Road glanced at the many guards and shouted, "Everyone, follow me," and set off. Yes. 20 elites nodded dumbly. They are all specially trained dead soldiers, let alone killing the king. Even if they are asked to rush to the naval headquarters, they will not turn back. Such a dead man also just meets the needs of Sade Road. If it was someone else, he was really worried, and after being caught, he was forced to find out his whereabouts. However, if it is a dead man, naturally there is no such risk. The possibility of trying to pry some useful information from the corner of the dead man's mouth is close to zero. It's like getting a mute to speak, it's hard, even harder. The group from Sade Road quickly left the castle. Kosha looked at the backs of Sade Road and the others, and the expression on his face became intriguing. Everyone who stands in my way will be killed by me. The corners of his mouth moved slightly, and he muttered to himself in a low voice. I don't know when, he used to treat Alabasta as if he treated his own relatives, with full love and caring for any people. His taste has changed. Was it because of the day Cobb rejected it? He couldn't even think of himself when it happened. Since then, he is no longer the Kosha who has received countless respects. Instead, there is a Kosha who infinitely magnifies the evil in his heart. Chapter 693 _ the beginning of everything. NLT, 33 and GT. Instead, there is a Kosha who infinitely magnifies the evil in his heart. It's just that he hasn't found an opportunity to vent. Now, the appearance of Sade Road makes him feel that his opportunity is here. Whether success or failure, I can accept it. Kosha lay directly on the sofa and smiled faintly, looking unpredictable. The capital, the central square. The human eyes here have completely blocked the locations around the street. There is a steady stream of visitors and never stops. Damn, so many people. My God, I didn't expect that. I thought I was early enough. It's only 7:30, how come they are already crowded here? You didn't come until 7:30. I'm here at 7 o'clock. Isn't that the same as you? being squeezed to the outermost area. Quote. Some people complained helplessly. They all came to the scene a few hours in advance, but they still couldn't predict that the people on the scene were so crazy. Some have arrived at the scene with 4 or 5 clicks. This made them even more speechless. It's just a king's speech, is it such an exaggeration? However, they themselves have exaggerated a bit. Who would be here so early? They were not many hours ahead themselves, but they didn't expect others to think further than they did. If they had known earlier, I'm afraid they would be even more crazy. They would not sleep all night, just pick up a stool and come here to spend the night. Diaresis, what time is it? A young man asked involuntarily. It should be almost 8 o'clock. That's another hour, and King Cobra is coming, and I haven't seen King Cobra in so long. I've had a sense of worry since he's been ill. This time, we don't need to worry about King Cobra's health. A group of people whispered and looked at the high platform in front of them. Since the king's speech has already been held, naturally, it is Cobra who is most likely to appear. If the other party is sick, it is definitely impossible to hold such a speech. The biggest possibility is that the other party's body has recovered. Soon. Time flies by. In a blink of an eye. The entire scene was more populated. Everyone was talking, and the voices resounded through the sky. A few streets away, you can hear the clamor from here. 90% of the entire royal capital is concentrated in this. You can see how terrifying it is. 9 o'clock, it's here. Everyone was stunned and looked at the high platform in front of them. At 9 o'clock, it finally came, and they could finally see that Cobra was there. A group of guards appeared quickly, separating the crowd from a certain position. In the crowd, everyone was boiling, and when they saw the appearance of the guards, they had already guessed that the next King Cobra was about to appear. Among the many people, an old man wearing a hat lowered his face, his eyes flickered, and he looked at the high platform with a bit of resentment and murder. Because there were too many people on the scene, no one found out that he was the wanted criminal Sade Road. Cobra, here I am. Whether it's a trap or not, you got what you wanted. But do you think I'll be caught so easily? Sade Road sneered and his expression became serious. Don't worry, I will let you understand the taste of my revenge. NLT, 34 and GT. Chapter 694_lively scene. All the guards did not find it, the sad road hidden in the crowd. And, he has dispersed the 20 elites to spread among the crowd, always ready to make a move and seize the opportunity. Under the order of Sade Road, the 20 elites will launch a thunderous strike. I believe that with so many people present, no one will know that he is hidden in the crowd. Therefore, after Sade Road came to the scene, he was very relieved and did not show any tension. On the contrary, you can see a strong sense of excitement on his face. I didn't expect that there are so many people here. This will allow me to have an extra shield to cover myself. Sadalu thought so in his heart, his eyes twinkling brightly. At the beginning, he didn't know there would be so many people here. But now that he came to the scene, he realized that even if he didn't wear a hat, I'm afraid that no one at the scene will be able to find him. Because everyone on the scene, basically, has their eyes on the high platform. Suddenly, the crowd was surging. Everyone forked a path, and a middle-aged man in gorgeous clothes walked into the sight of the crowd step by step under the escort of the guards. It's King Cobra. The king is sure to be fine. I am so excited. It really was the king's speech held by the king. I'm relieved to see that the king of Cobra is safe and sound. Quote. 353. There are many people who simply want to come and see Cobra's physical condition. After all, Cobra represents the supreme decision of the entire kingdom of Alabasta. Moreover, the point is, Cobra is good at understanding public opinion, and there is no people who do not like this kind of king. Therefore, Cobra's physical condition is also the target of everyone's attention. Amidst the shouting of the lively crowd, with a calm face and a smile, Cobra walked towards the high platform step by step. In the crowd, Sederlu's face was gloomy, and when he saw Cobra's appearance, he couldn't hide his murderous intent, making his face hideous. But he understands that now is not the chance to do it. He had to take advantage of the moment when the guards were negligent and attacked Cobra. Wait. His eyes were firm, and he thought to himself. Seeing that Cobra was so well received, he was very upset. In everyone's sight, Cobra walked to the high platform step by step, appearing in everyone's eyes. Everyone can see the figure of Cobra, raising his head, his face full of admiration. This is their CDDA, Lord King. A good king who is sympathetic to the people and loves the country and the people. Alabasta can have such a good king, they are lucky for 3 lives. Lord Cobra King. A group of people shouted loudly and loudly. Feeling the lively atmosphere at the scene, Cobra stood on the high platform with a gentle smile on his face. Beside him, Equilem stood, always vigilant to prevent others from attacking. He knew very well what purpose this speech was held for. Therefore, his eyes have always stayed in the crowd, constantly searching, trying to find the figure of Sade Road. But it's too hard. There are too many people here, and it is difficult to find such a person in this crowd. But still holding a lucky heartbeat, Equilem kept looking around the crowd in addition to being cautious. What if you are lucky enough to see it? Chapter 694_lively scene. NLT, 35 and GT. What if you are lucky enough to see it? This is something no one can tell. Equilem, it's over to you. Cobra looked at Equilem beside him, took a deep breath, and said. Please rest assured, I will guarantee your safety. Moreover, Mr. Liang, he has already observed it not far away. It is impossible to escape his eyes under any circumstances. After Equilem nodded, he said seriously. If there is no Liang, he really needs to be very worried. But with Liang's presence, his nervousness can be relaxed a little bit. Immediately, Cobra moved forward, looked at the crowd in front, and waved his hand. Silence. Everyone in the audience fell silent, looking at Cobra's figure. With so many people, even the streets were surrounded by water. With a large population, it can still maintain such a quiet atmosphere, which shows how terrible it is. It can also be seen from the side that Cobra's influence is still very sufficient. Everyone, please be quiet. Cobra rubbed his voice and spoke slowly. Everyone in the audience looked at Cobra with high energy and their eyes fixed. After waiting for so long, finally, Cobra waited. I believe that some time ago, news has been circulating. What to say, I am seriously ill in bed and have a short life. Of course, I do not deny it. Some time ago, my physical condition was really bad. But compared with the news that my life will be soon, it is still very far away. And after training, my body has returned to its original state. Again, let me make a statement first, my people. You don't need to worry about my body, I'm still strong, don't listen to slander. Quote. I'll just say, Lord Cobra is still in good health. I don't know which grandson spreads these unreliable things. Some thought angrily. After hearing what Cobra said, many people secretly breathed a sigh of relief. This is the king they love, how can he be tortured by illness so easily? Afterwards, Cobra started the speech, and the audience was silent and listened carefully. Equilem looked around with great vigilance, preventing any surprise attack. In the crowd, Sater's eyes narrowed slightly, with a strong sense of coldness, he would not let go of any opportunity. But for now, it's better to wait for time to paralyze these guards. The other side. On a tall building. Liang had already stood here, watching Cobra's speech below, and the dense crowd with a calm expression. Hancock, Wei Wei and others were left in the palace by him. This line is not important. For him, it doesn't take much time. And Rua Wei Wei was in the palace with Hancock and others, so she didn't need to worry about safety at all. There are Hancock, Tautu, and Tina, 3 powerful women with terrifying strength. Even if there are enemies, they are not enough enemies together. At this time, when Li Ang saw the color, it gradually spread and enveloped the audience. The terrifying sight and domineering range covers the area within a kilometer of the radius. At the same time, in his ears, there were bursts of other people's hearts. It is not unique for a high-level witness to be domineering and to be able to listen to the voices of others. Back in Roger's time, Roger, Baloric and others were able to do it. However, it is different from Li Ang. Their level is still not as high as Li Ang's knowledge level. After all, the domineering arrogance that has been systematically blessed is naturally the top of this world. NLT, 36 and GT. Chapter 695 _ I finally got caught. Lord Cobra is safe and sound, I'm really happy. Che, it's just a king of Alabasta. I thought it was a grand event. It was a waste of expression. Forget it, let's go. What's for lunch today? I'm looking forward to it. Quote. A personal voice echoed in Li Ang's ears. His face was calm, and he listened a little bit. However, there are too many people, and it is still difficult for him to filter out some meaningful voices. After all, he's also just a human, not a machine. Even for a machine, it is still difficult to filter out certain people from the voices of so many people. Li Ang was expressionless, looking at the crowd in front of him, standing on the roof without any emotional fluctuations. There are too many people, but things have to take their time. Still watching to see if anyone wants to attack Cobra. Li Ang's mouth moved slightly, and he whispered to himself. Under the shroud of his knowledge, once others want to do something to Cobra, he can immediately notice it. As long as there is a slightest change, he can find clues. His speed, of course, is not covered. If the other party moves, he can take the lead. Without such ability, how can he guarantee that no one will hurt Cobra? The atmosphere is quite lively now. There was a bit of interest on Li Ang's face, and the speech of that guy Cobra was heard in his ears. Well, how to say? The position of the king has been held for a long time, and some of the words he said are also very intriguing. However, for these ordinary people, Cobra's words also hit the hearts of these people, so that each of them listened quietly. It can be seen that the king of Cobra is still very competent. Under the shroud of his knowledge, every move of the crowd could not escape his discovery. In the crowd, Sator's eyes narrowed slightly, his hands reached into his arms, and he felt the cold touch, which made his smile even more sinister. Where's the monster Li Ang? His eyes twinkled, looking around. However, he could never see Li Ang's figure. This made him feel more stable, and the corners of his mouth curled slightly. It seems that this monster Li Ang doesn't intend to come here to listen to these boring speeches. Now, it will be more beneficial for my situation. He pulled his hat and covered his face so that no one around him could see it. At the same time, he calmly looked in the direction of the personnel he had arranged. 20 elites are always ready to act. As long as he gives orders, these 20 elites will immediately rush to Cobra's position and use the most severe means to kill Cobra. Not yet. But Sade Road still held back. He glanced at the rigorous guards around him, took a deep breath, and suppressed the impulse in his heart. Now, it's not time to start. Impulsively, in the end, he didn't think he could succeed. As a qualified conspirator, he still has this patience. Otherwise, how could it have been hiding in the garbage for so long? There was a stir in the crowd. Because of Cobra's speech, all things such as the future development of Alabasta were truthfully informed to the crowd, which made everyone excited. The future Alabasta will be very prosperous. I'm really fortunate to be able to hear King Cobra's words here today. The impact on me is simply too great. Chapter 695 _ I was finally caught. NLT, 37 and GT. I'm really fortunate to be able to hear King Cobra's words here today. The impact on me is simply too great. No, but King Cobra's plan will take a certain amount of time to settle. At present, this bold plan should be unlikely to be realized. However, I think we can achieve it sooner or later. Quote. The crowd said a word, and their expressions were full of excitement. They looked at Cobra on the high platform, their eyes filled with admiration. When they saw Cobra, they felt that they saw hope for the future of Alabasta. Immediately, their admiration for Cobra skyrocketed. This is not only a king who loves his country and his people, but also a wise king who has the courage to make some bold plans and is brave and promising. So, don't worry, my plan will definitely come true. At that time, we, Alabasta, don't have to worry about this little resource. I believe that everyone will work hard in this direction. I hope that everyone will work with me to build a more prosperous Alabasta. Quote. Cobra continued without a pause. Beside him, Ecolem's face was solemn, and he didn't dare to be careless, and kept looking at the crowd. Relying on his personal vision, it is undoubtedly difficult to arrest one of them. Moreover, the crowd was blocked by the people in front. No one can guarantee whether the Sade Road is at the front end. If it is in the middle of the crowd, he wants to find Thad Road, the probability is close to 0. I can only look forward to Mr. Liang. Ecolem took a deep breath, his tone was inexplicable, and he whispered to himself. He could only passively protect Cobra, and as for finding Seder Road, there was nothing he could do. Everything can only see Liang's ability. Isn't there yet? The corners of Ecolem's mouth moved slightly, and he felt a little tired because he was highly concentrated. Being able to stay in this environment for such a long time is already quite remarkable. 0. In the crowd, after seeing Ecolem's exhaustion, Sadlu raised a cold arc at the corner of his mouth. It's finally mentally exhausted, I'm waiting for when you're exhausted. Above the tall buildings, Liang looked down and heard heartfelt voices in his ears. Lord Cobra is so great, I am so lucky to be born in Alabasta. If possible, I think this plan of King Cobra can be improved. Come on, get tired, and then I can do it. Cobra, you old thing, it's time to go to hell, whoever comes, can't save you. Suddenly, Liang's eyes flashed, and a smile appeared on his face. His eyes were constantly inspecting the crowd, and, listening to his heart, stopped on the same person. All the things in this man's mind came to his mind. Even the plan of this person acting like this, when to act, etc., are gradually unfolding in Liang's head, and there is no secret at all. Sade Road. I finally caught it. The smile on Liang's face grew brighter and he whispered to himself. He didn't go down to Thad Road from the crowd, but his domineering look had already been blocked on Thad Road himself. Therefore, before the other party takes any action, after listening to him, he can know in advance the action time and plan of Thadlu and others. It is normal to be able to steal other people's voices, so that it is normal to be one step faster than the other party. And the ridiculous Sade Road still doesn't know that, in fact, he has been targeted. Chapter 696-Assassination. In the crowd, Saderlu's eyes flashed with brilliance, his face full of murderous intent, and he looked ahead. Seeing Cobra on the high platform, his murderous intention became more and more intense, his whole face was covered with hideousness, and he sneered, wishing he could do it now. No one around him noticed anything wrong with him. Almost everyone's eyes were fixed on Cobra. Therefore, he didn't realize that there was a wanted criminal beside him. Get ready. Thadlu calmly glanced at the 20 elites scattered all over the place, and gave them a gesture. Immediately, the 20 elites nodded dumbly, without any expression fluctuations, and stared at Cobra on the high platform in front of him. They are all dead men and don't care who needs to be killed. Whether it's Cobra or let them die, they won't frown. Zero Sanchi. For them, obeying orders is the highest order. As for whether Cobra is king or not, it cannot cause any turbulence among them. At this time, Saderlu's eyes shone brightly, he took out a dagger from his arms and smeared some poison on it. Just a little contamination, and the enemy will die instantly. Even if there are guards, he is sure to kill Cobra directly. It's coming soon. He looked forward almost unbearably, anxiously. Seeing Ekolem and the many guards getting tired gradually, he sneered in his heart. What he wanted was that the writer was exhausted. In this way, he can take advantage of it. If these guys are still in good spirits, he'll have to think about another way of attacking. We must take advantage of these people's lack of defense and catch the gap to kill Cobra. In his opinion, this is the only way to have a 40% success rate. It's just that he didn't know that in the tall building, there was always a person watching his heart activity. Li Ang stood on the top of the building, his face was expressionless, and there were bursts of heart sounds from Sade Road in his ears. He narrowed his eyes slightly, glanced at the scene below, and whispered to himself, it seems that he is not only alone, but also accomplices. Where did the accomplice come from? This question made it difficult for him to explain. Sure enough, just as he guessed, Thadlu was hidden in the house of a certain minister. Therefore, no matter how you search, it is difficult to find the shadow of Sade Road. Moreover, this person seems to have given Thadlu a certain amount of manpower to deal with Cobra. In this case, things get a little more complicated. Li Ang is not in a hurry, but it is still necessary to remind Ekolem and other guards to prepare for the attack. Now, we can't take down Thad Road. If you want to find out the person behind him, you must not do it now. The corners of Li Ang's mouth moved slightly, thinking about it. If you want to find out the person who gave Thadlu a certain amount of manpower, then you need the leadership of Thadlu himself. Otherwise, killing Sade Road directly and hiding a potential threat has never been Li Ang's style. His style is still more inclined. If he can catch everything in one go, he should not kill a certain person. This one person is the key to connecting with others. Therefore, Li Ang did not plan to start. As long as Cobra survives, Sade Road can find an opportunity to escape from here. Chapter 696_Assassination. NGT, page 1/2. Please click the next page to continue reading. NLT, 39 NGT. As long as Cobra survives, Sade Road can find an opportunity to escape from here. If that escapes, who is the first person he looks for? This is self-evident. Li Ang can do it right now if he just needs to arrest Sade Road, and there is a high chance that he will find Sade Road directly, and even all those who are ready to do it on the scene can be caught. However, the people who were hiding in the depths and who helped Sade quietly disappeared. This is not what Li Ang wants to see. Rather, give Sade a little hope and let him think that there is still some possibility of survival. Then, he will find his greatest refuge. In this case, the natural reaction of people is to find someone they can trust. So, who else could Thadlu find besides the one who helped him? Thinking of this, Li Ang's smile grew brighter. Directly ahead, Cobra was still giving a speech. And Ekolem has also been somewhat cautious. At this time, Li Ang spoke slowly, and directly said to Ekolem's ear, "The enemy is coming." Well. Ekolem shivered and recovered. Don't be nervous, it's easy to scare them away like this. You just need to keep it as you were just now, and then you can lure them to do it. Li Ang's face was calm and continued. If Ekolem looks like this, it's hard not to attract the attention of others. Especially the guy Sade Road, who has been waiting for the moment when the guards relax, before preparing to start. In this case, Ekolem had to act a little more lazy to make Thadlu think that he already had a chance to do it. Mr. Li Ang. Ekolem's throat was dry, and he whispered to himself. It's me. Next, you can mainly take precautions. On the surface, you still maintain this state, but I'm sure that within 3 minutes, the other party will make a move. Li Ang continued, you just need to catch these hands-on people. If you see Thad Road, I hope you will let him go in secret. Why? Ekolem was full of doubts. Li Ang went on to say, Sade Road has accomplices, and he came here more than one person. So, where did his reinforcements come from? It is almost certain that there is another person behind him who is helping him. If we took us to Sad Road, we could certainly kill him to avoid future troubles. But wouldn't the person behind him who helped him secretly attack Alabasta? Since this person has decided to help Thadlu, it proves that this person is by no means a kind person, and it is impossible for him to be sincere to Alabasta 5.6. At the very least, he wants to let Cobra die. Quote. Down with these words. Ekolem understood, nodded secretly, and agreed. It would be even more perfect if the person who helped Sadr Road behind the scenes could be found out. Can he still distrust Li Ang's ability? Li Ang's ability is naturally understandable, and he can't find any reason to refute. Moreover, this whole plan was also proposed by Li Ang. Therefore, he can only choose to believe in Li Ang's ability. Needs attention. Ekolem thought to himself, on the surface maintaining the same expression as before, but in his heart, he has already adjusted the state of his whole body to the best. Once there is a riot, he will immediately lead the guards to suppress the riot. Chapter 697-Riot. The key is that according to Li Ang's words, Sade Road will be released on purpose. It's not enough to grab a Thad Road. During this period of time, Thadlu must have used the power of others, otherwise, relying on his own power, he would never be able to hide so concealed. Besides, he has helpers. Where did the helper come from? In addition to the helpers given to him by others, what other sources are there? Thinking of this, Ekolem's face became even more solemn. Unexpectedly, when Saderlu was in such a downturn, someone still gave him some help. Is it a deep friendship with Sade Road? Or, that person also wants to let Lord Cobra die? Unforgivable. Ekolem's face turned cold, gritted his teeth, and said to himself. Really, people who haven't experienced it don't know that there are so many people who want to let Lord Cobra die. Such a good king, does anyone want to assassinate him? At this time, Li Ang's voice appeared again. Get ready, they're going to do it. 23 Mr. Li Ang, please rest assured. Ekolem froze for a moment, put aside all thoughts, and nodded secretly. Since he is prepared, he will naturally not fear any attack. However, on the surface, he still had to make an appearance of mental exhaustion. In fact, he was already full of energy, ready for the next assassination. In the crowd, Sadlu's eyes flashed, and when he saw that Ekolem was in a slump and the guards around him were vacant, he roared in his heart, do it. 20 elites, under his orders, armed with large knives, smeared with poison, and fiercely launched an attack in the crowd. At this point, Cobra was still giving a speech. He saw that from the crowd, 20 people armed with large knives came out, attacking in his direction. In an instant, the scene became vibrating. Stop them. Ekolem's eyes widened and he shouted. Immediately, all the guards swarmed and quickly blocked the 20 elites in front. Kill. From the crowd, there was a cold and murderous voice. 20 elites, armed with poisonous blades, immediately started fighting. Puff. A soldier's head was directly chopped off. Moreover, the corpse turned black on the spot, was corroded by the poison, and died directly. Even if the head is not cut off, according to this toxicity, even if the immortals come, they will have to drink hatred. The smell of blood filled the air, falling to the ground, and the bright red dazzling blood appeared in everyone's sight. In an instant, it was a sensation. My God, someone's going to assassinate King Cobra. Who is so bold that even King Cobra dares to do it? Let's get out of here quickly and give the guards some space. We can't let us be a distraction in their battle. If you don't want to die, leave here immediately. Quote. The scene became violent in an instant, and everyone was afraid of death. Although there are also many hot-blooded young people who want to rush up to stop those assassins. But after hearing the calm words of some people in the crowd, I suppressed the blood in my heart and quickly evacuated this area. That's right. Professional things can be done by professionals. They are just laymen, and if they want to fight against these assassins, they are undoubtedly going to die. Chapter 697-Riot. They are just laymen, and if they want to fight against these assassins, they are undoubtedly going to die. The whole army obeys orders. Bell and Gaka's two animal powers also stood up, with a cold face, and shouted, immediately, kill all 20 of them for me. Yes, Captain. A group of guards immediately nodded and shouted. Each of their faces was full of anger. Unexpectedly, someone actually rushed in front of the public and attacked King Cobra. It was simply too hateful. There was a sensation in the crowd, but it was obviously impossible to completely leave this area in a short period of time. And Sade Road, with a hat on his head, was still hidden from the crowd. He was quietly approaching Cobra's direction. Because the scene was so chaotic, no one noticed his movements. It turns out that the 20 elites have always been just a cover. This is just a pretense to divert the attention of the guards. The person who really wants to do it is actually Thadlu himself. He used these elites and effectively diverted all the attention. Above the tall buildings, Liang saw the only person in the crowd who had a clue. He glanced at Cobra's direction again, and the corner of his mouth twitched. The distance between the two is constantly pulling in. Is he Sade Road? Liang's eyes narrowed slightly, sparkling brightly, and he whispered to himself. Most people leave the battlefield at the same time. And this person is still approaching the direction of the battlefield. It is conceivable that his purpose is definitely not very pure. Afterwards, Liang glanced at Ikulem's location, and transmitted his voice again. Ikulem, Thad Road is approaching you, pay attention and protect Cobra. Moreover, at the critical moment, give the opponent a way to survive, so that he can leave here smoothly. Quote. Get Liang's voice transmission. Ikulem, who was standing beside Cobra, also had a tense expression and nodded lightly. He was almost attracted by those 20 elites just now, but he didn't even realize it. Thadlu boldly set his target on the body of Lord Cobra. If it wasn't for Liang's reminder, I'm afraid that it would be difficult for him to deal with the sudden attack of Thad Road. Moreover, the corpse on the ground has turned black all over. The blade of these people is poisonous. This made Ikulem even more vigilant, and drew 227 knives from his waist, always ready to attack. He kept turning his eyes, trying to find the trail of Sade Road. Beside, Cobra had stopped speaking, expressionless, not surprised or nervous. These things, he had expected. For Liang's plan, he expressed deep admiration in his heart. Really? Thadlu would choose to attack him at this time. Liang's plan was completely correct. If it weren't for this plan, it would be impossible to lead to the Sad Road. Don't worry, Lord Cobra, I will definitely arrest Thad Road. Ikulem took a deep breath and assured with a stern face. Although he is a housekeeper, he is also the captain of the King's Guard, with a higher official rank than Bell and Gaka of the Zoology Department. His strength is not as simple as it seems on the surface. Perhaps looking at the entire sea, his strength is minimal. But in Alabasta, his strength is still considerable. Especially when it comes to dealing with Sade Road, it is basically no problem. Yeah. Cobra nodded lightly, but said nothing. He looked at the dead soldier in front of him, his face a bit ugly and regretful. These soldiers died fighting for him. How could he be in a better mood? NLT, 42 and GT. Chapter 698-Chaos. However, this time the plan, to be able to catch Thad Road, would be worth it. These soldiers, die well. Of course, Cobra will give them a lot of money to settle down, and as a soldier who died fighting for Alabasta, they should also have their honor. Lord Cobra, I think it's time for me to do it. Ikulem's pupils shrank, took a deep breath, and said flatly. Well. Cobra looked suspiciously at Ikulem. I see. Ekolem jumped down from the high platform, stood steadily on the ground, held a saber, and looked at the old man wearing a hat in front of him, his face expressionless. Silence. The two looked at each other, not giving in at all. How did you find out? Fablu raised his brows, looking at Ekolem who was blocking his face. His face became very ugly. He thought that, logically, everyone should be attracted by 20 elites. Then, what happened to the Ekolem standing in front of me? These doubts, he could not get an explanation and answer. But he knew, he was exposed. He was exposed to everyone's sight, and the original advantage was gone. To kill Cobra, there is only a 10% chance left. Damn. Sadru gritted his teeth, holding a dagger contaminated with poison, and stared at Ekolem in front of him. His face was extremely ugly. He also thought he had a good chance of killing Cobra if he wasn't found out. But being discovered, all opportunities simply vanished. So, whether he can leave here safely is also unknown. Sade Road, you deserve to die for your crime, but you actually want to assassinate the king. According to the king's law, even if you are cut into pieces, no one will sympathize with you. Ekolem held a saber, pointed at Sad Road, and said coldly. Joke. Sade Road sneered, since I've done it, what kind of laws do I still care about? That's right, as early as a few years ago, there was no king's law in your heart. Otherwise, you wouldn't have done so many things that can be called unconscionable. Ekolem still said, now, take it easy. Go ahead, you'd better die. Fablu grinned, holding a dagger and swooping towards Ekolem's position. As long as the opponent's skin is cut, the winner is him. At this time, his 20 elite dead soldiers were blocking that group of guards. If he can kill Ekolem in a short period of time, Cobra's life is naturally in the palm of his hand and can be obliterated at any time. The premise of all this is to kill Ekolem. The only person standing in front of him was Ekolem. Come on, let me see your strength. Ekolem didn't have any tension or anxiety. He looked at the sad road in front of him, holding a sharp saber. His eyes were motionless, and he was very focused. With a dagger in hand, Fablu kept his eyes fixed on Ekolem. He only felt that Ekolem gave him a very strong pressure. If confronted head-on, he may not be an opponent. However, he doesn't need to defeat the opponent, he just needs to cut through the opponent's skin. The winner is him. Come on. Sadlu sneered, kicked his feet, and launched an attack swiftly. Regardless of his age, his movements are particularly fast. Several times faster than those in their prime. Boom. With a saber in hand, Ekolem directly blocked the attack of Sade Road. There was a flash of fire, with a sharp, piercing sound. This guy, it's not easy. Ekolem's face became very serious, and he whispered to himself. On the opposite side, Fablu also had a solemn expression, sneered, turned sideways, and quickly avoided Ekolem's attack, holding a dagger, reaching directly to Ekolem's neck. Chapter 698-Great Chaos. NLT, 43 and GT. On the opposite side, Fablu also had a solemn expression, sneered, turned sideways, and quickly avoided Ekolem's attack, holding a dagger, reaching directly to Ekolem's neck. Die. He seemed to see the scene of Ekolem being killed, his eyes twinkling. Boom. Ekolem stepped back, holding a blade, blocking Sad Road's attack. These poisons are very strong. After seeing the black body on the ground, he didn't dare to be careless at all. Once you are infected, you may die if you can't hold on for a minute. The confrontation between the two is in a stalemate. On the high platform, Cobra watched the battle between Ekolem and Fablu, and not far away, his escort was fighting the 20 assassins. He frowned, waiting for the outcome of the battle. Of the 20 assassins, there are now 8 or 9 remaining. The people in the escort team also died close to 20. The poisonous blade of these people is the most fatal injury to the personnel of the escort. Otherwise, so many people would die. Kill. A group of guards, with red eyes, shouted loudly. They fiercely attacked the dead men who didn't know the pain. Boom, boom, boom. A burst of crisp and melodious encounters. Around, countless people looked at the battle scene with fear on their faces. Those who were originally full of blood did not dare to say a word. This scene really made their hearts tremble and their lips trembled. Seeing such a battle, how dare they rush up? The smell of blood wafts out, making the blood in their heads cool all of a sudden. This is the fight. Diaresis, no, I have to get out of here, it's horrible here. A middle-aged woman was horrified, pale, and lost her voice. Seeing that bloody scene, how dare she linger? Most of the residents here are ordinary people, how could they have seen such a bloody scene? Immediately, a group of people were terrified and quickly left here. The scene is also unusually chaotic, except for the fighting personnel. And these residents, they couldn't help trembling when they saw the bloody battle. Go, go, get out of here. The scene was extremely chaotic, and some people's faces were pale. There were also many who fainted and fell to the ground on the spot, trembling and unable to move. Inside the field, Ekolem held a large sword and looked at the sad road in front of him. He didn't have any injuries on his body, but there were knife marks one after another on Fadlu's body, and blood was exposed, which was very obvious. Damn guy, for the money. Sadlu's face was gloomy, looking at Ekolem in front of him. The difference in strength is still quite large. He spent a lot of energy, but still couldn't bring any scars to Ekolem. Although he tried his best to inflict scars on the other party, as long as a little bit, just cut the wound. But Ekolem blocked him directly. Many times, he almost hit the opponent, but was still avoided by the opponent. This made Satyr not only angry, but also deeply aggrieved. Ah! A painful voice came out. A dead man had his hands chopped off, and a bloody scene appeared in the eyes of Fadlu. Satyrlu's face became heavier and he gritted his teeth. If you go on like this, you won't be able to do it yourself. Even Cobra's side couldn't get close, and his manpower was getting fewer and fewer. If this continues, he will not only be unable to kill Cobra. Even his own life had to be taken in vain. NLT, 44 and GT. Chapter 699 deliberately escape. I can't delay time with them here, those wastes are almost dead. If I continue to fight, maybe, I will be surrounded. Satyr's eyes twinkled, thinking so in his heart. He felt very urgent. If he is surrounded by these people, it is basically impossible for him to leave here alive. Although he wanted to let Cobra die, he was absolutely unwilling to die like this before the other party died. I'm not reconciled that Cobra doesn't die. Cobra on the high stage with resentment on his face. Puff. Suddenly, Ekolem launched an attack, directly piercing Sadru's arm and penetrating past. Ah! Satyr roared in pain, blue veins burst out on his forehead, and the whole person looked extremely painful. And the other side. The battle between the escort and the dead has also ended. There are only 20 dead soldiers, but the guards are right, there are more than 1,000 people, guarding here. So, the outcome of the battle is obvious. However, although 20 dead soldiers were killed, the damage to the escort was also obvious. There are nearly 40 people who have died. 2 lives can be exchanged for the life of a dead man. This was the result when both Bell and Gaka, the animal-type abilities, participated in the battle. If there are no 2 people, the damage will be more. The most important reason is because of the high toxicity. Moreover, there is also the fearless will of the dead to exchange wounds for wounds. To be able to lose more than 40 people and kill these 20 dead soldiers is already a very remarkable record. At the same time, a group of guards quickly approached in the direction of Sade Road, preparing to surround him. Damn! Sade Road took a few steps back, looked at his pierced arm, and then saw the people around him who were constantly approaching. His face became particularly ugly. It would be very bad for him to go on like this. Perhaps, he was directly killed here without touching Cobra. No, we must find a way. Sadlu's eyes became gloomy, and he gritted his teeth, thinking so in his heart. Looking at the approaching guards around him, he took a deep breath and calmed down. Immediately, he looked at the Ekolem in front of him again, holding the dagger in one hand in his right hand, his face without any hesitation, and fiercely launched an attack. If you are not surrounded, then you must take the initiative to attack and seek a chance of survival. Boom, boom, boom. Ekolem still blocked Sad Road's attack very strongly, which made the latter's face even more ugly and heavy. Above the tall buildings, Liang looked down, looking at the only remaining battle below, expressionless. All the dead are dead. Only Sadr Road was left. If you are surrounded, you will be doomed to the death of Thad Road. Before that, Sade Road must leave here to find the person behind the scenes. If he was surrounded and only let go, perhaps Sadr would notice something. Immediately, Liang spoke and said, Ekolem, that's almost it. If you let him go now, it won't attract his attention. If everyone surrounds him and let him go, he will surely notice something. The weirdness. Quote. In the battlefield. Ekolem's eyes flashed, and he received instructions from Liang. The Sad Road in front of him happened to be attacking, holding a dagger full of poison and attacking fiercely. At the same time, Ekolem turned sideways and avoided the attack of Sad Road. Great opportunity. Sadlu's eyes flashed brightly as he passed by Ekolem. The position in front is empty, and no one is blocking it at all. Chapter 699 Deliberately Escape. NLT, 45 and GT. The position in front is empty, and no one is blocking it at all. This opportunity is rare. Not good. Ekolem rolled his eyes, pretending to be shocked, and shouted. It's too late. Thadlu looked back at Ekolem and sneered. He is already confident that he can escape from here. He raised his head, looked at Cobra on the high platform, and sneered, Cobra, I will come again. I hope your life will be tougher and don't die too early. Keep him. Cobra's face changed slightly and shouted loudly. A group of guards attacked rapidly and rushed forward. However, Shadelu stepped on a wooden ladder, a clone, and immediately crossed a small house, disappearing from the sight of all the guards. Bell. Ekolem glanced at Bell, who was a bird fruit, and whispered, Go and follow. Remember, at a critical moment, let him go. Huh. Bell looked puzzled and asked inexplicably. Obey orders, and later, there are plans. Ekolem didn't have time to explain too much, and said bluntly. Yes, Captain. Flowers. Bell nodded solemnly, turned into a birdman, quickly flew into the air, followed the direction of Sade Road, and disappeared in everyone's sight. The battle came to an end. All the people recovered and looked at the corpse in front of them with palpitations on their faces. Who is it? He dares to do something to King Cobra, it is unforgivable. Damn guy, that person just now, if you don't know what to expect. He should be the wanted criminal who was wanted some time ago, Thad Road. My god, it's actually him, he's going to do something to King Cobra. It's so abhorrent, so sinful, why didn't you keep him just now? Quote. After the incident, basically everyone's mood calmed down a little, and they talked with anger on their faces. After learning the identity of the criminal, their mood became even more indescribable. 0. This is still a former minister of Alabasta, and it is really hateful to actually attack King Cobra. Everyone, you've worked hard. Cobra stood on the high platform, took a deep breath, and said slowly, what happened today is really unpredictable. As for the speech, I can also say something about it. It is announced that the king's speech is officially over. Quote. King Cobra, please don't mind, that damn criminal, we'll catch him. Yes, King Cobra, go back to rest, we will not let him escape. A group of residents had a firm expression and shouted excitedly. Arrange staff to deal with the bodies here. Cobra looked at Ekolem, rubbed his temples, and ordered with a bit of exhaustion. Yes. EPUB nodded and led a group of guards to clean up the corpses here. There were also some guards, led by another adjutant, Gaka, who quickly tracked Sad Road. For this, EPUB did not stop. If there is no person to follow, it will cause Sad Road's suspicion. Since it's a show, it's natural to do it real. If it arouses the awareness of Sade Road, it will not be worth the loss. Above the tall buildings, Liang's eyes narrowed slightly, looking at the direction in which Sade Road escaped, and the domineering look he saw never dissipated. No matter where Thadlu fled to, he couldn't get rid of his stalking. The corners of his mouth moved slightly, and with a bit of interest, he said with a smile, "It's a good show, it's about to start." After all, who provided the man and material resources for this guy Sade Road? Let's wait and see. Chapter 700_tracking. Dim Street. Damn it. Sade Road clutched the scar on his shoulder. His face was gloomy and ugly, and he was very vigilant in walking in this dim environment, quietly and silently. He was directly hit by EPUB, and he was bleeding profusely. In this case, he naturally wanted to cover the wound immediately. Prevent excessive blood flow and direct death. It has been about 5 minutes since he fled the scene. He didn't dare to be careless at all, because in the sky, there was a bird and fruit person who was constantly tracking him, and he didn't dare to stop. How did he find me? This time, instead of killing Cobra, he also caught up with me. What a failure, I didn't expect it. Sade Road gritted his teeth, feeling heavy and depressed. What made him feel threatened was Bell in the sky. Was very easy for the other party to track down a 9-2 person in the sky. This made Satyr Lu dare not be careless. What's more, he is still injured, so it is even more impossible to blatantly appear. In this case, he is one-on-one and is by no means Bell's opponent, and he does not dare to play against Bell. The blood must be stopped, otherwise, there is no way to hide my whereabouts along the way. Sadlu looked at the blood on the ground, feeling nervous and uneasy. Blood flowed slowly down his shoulders along the trajectory. With every step he took, the blood fell uncontrollably onto the floor. In this way, it would be as difficult for him to leave here without a trace. Immediately, he picked up a few newspapers from the side, and regardless of whether there was bacterial contamination, he sifted to the location of the wound violently. The pain caused him to take a deep breath. Have to find a place to heal. Satyr's eyes narrowed slightly, feeling that the newspaper was gradually infected with blood, and his mood became more and more urgent. If he doesn't get treatment soon, he will soon pass out of blood loss. At that time, even if he wanted to escape, he would not be able to escape. Kosha. For the first time, the person he thought of was Kosha. Apart from Kosha, there was no one he could trust. Everyone had the same goal, and he believed that Kosha would never give him to Cobra. Therefore, considering his current situation, looking for Kosha is the only way. If he doesn't want to die, only Kosha can help him heal his wounds, and it won't cause others to find out. But before that, he must get rid of others' stalking. If someone catches him at Kosha's house, not only him, but Kosha will suffer. Where's the Birdman? Satyr raised his head, looked at the sky, and said very cautiously. The blue sky, a huge Birdman, swept past. Sadlu leaned his back against the wall with a nervous face to prevent him from being discovered by the Birdman in the sky. After a few minutes, making sure he wasn't being watched by Bell, he quickly plunged into the alley beside him. Only by finding some alleys can he guarantee that he will not be noticed by people in the sky. If he walks the street, he is likely to be discovered at the first time. Because the king's speech was too grand. As a result, the entire capital became very deserted, and the personnel were concentrated in the same place. In the empty street, he was the only one walking alone, which could easily arouse Bell's awareness. In order to prevent this from happening, he had to choose some sheltered alleys to escape. He knew Kosha's address very well, and he had already memorized it in his heart. Along the way, they were all familiar with the road, and they saw the castle of Kosha not far away. Hope, everything goes well. Chapter 700 _ tracking. NLT, 47 and GT. Hope, everything goes well. Satyr gritted his teeth, feeling even more nervous after feeling that the newspaper had been stained red with blood. His face has also become very pale, and it is difficult for him to maintain the status quo due to excessive blood loss. The wound must be treated very quickly, or he will die. On the sky. Bell stretched his wings and looked down with sharp eyes. What do you mean by the captain's words? He was very puzzled. Many times just now, he could directly arrest Sade Road. But when he thought of Ekulem's words, he forcibly resisted the urge in his heart. And now, even if he wanted to arrest Thad Road, there was no way he could do it. The best chance for him to miss. The figure of Sade Road was not in his sight. If you want to catch the other party, you have to continue to search. Never mind, just obey the order. Bell shook his head, flapped his wings, and quickly disappeared in this area. As for the search on Sade Road, it is naturally impossible to stop. It's just that, when appropriate, he will follow Ekulem's reminder to allow Thadlu to leave smoothly. Bell's water release. He still foolishly thinks that he escaped the pursuit by virtue of his own strength. But he didn't know that from the beginning to the end, a domineering look had always shrouded him. Let him escape to the ends of the earth, and he will not be able to escape the pursuit. At this time, Thad Road has reached the wall of Kosha Castle. His face grew paler, gritted his teeth, and jumped over the wall at once. The blood flowed more and more, and a mass of bright red blood appeared on the wall, leaving obvious traces. He glanced around vigilantly, took a deep breath, and approached the front hall step by step. It is true that these guards belong to Kosha, but if they found Satyr Road, they would attack him, and kill him on the spot on the grounds of trespassing into the minister's house. Crunch. Sade Road opened the door, and then closed the door nervously, and appeared in the hall. Kosha. The corners of his mouth moved slightly, his throat was dry, and he whispered. He could feel that his body was in constant decline. Consciousness is constantly weakening. Looking forward, the vision also became hazy, and the whole person was swaying and was about to fall. He held the chair tightly and searched in the hall, but in the end, he still couldn't find Kosha's shadow. At this moment, the door opened. With a calm face, Kosha walked into the hall. There was a bloody smell in the air, making him vigilant, holding a saber 0.6, and walking in the hall step by step. Cough cough. Sadlu looked at Kosha's appearance, coughed and whispered, "You are finally back, otherwise, I'm afraid, I will die here today." Sade Road. Kosha's pupils shrank, her brows furrowed, and she looked at the severely injured Satyr Road. The first thing he thought of was, this guy, shouldn't he bring trouble here? Failed. What about the person being followed? Don't worry. Thadlu clearly noticed Kosha's concern and explained, I've gotten rid of the stalkers, so they can't find out that I'm here. You can rest assured of this. I won't bring trouble here, after all, I don't want to die either. What's the matter? Kosha breathed a sigh of relief, and asked with a solemn face.